This is the GPL Podcast, part of the Pull Tab Sports family. The thing is, if I drink whiskey, I will not be able to function.
Perfect. Let's do it.
It's happened before.
See, I got to make sure the audio works so I don't end up like Nicoletti.
But I think the Gophers have, skater-wise, 1-19, the best roster in the country.
Wow, we just got finished.
That sounds kind of weird.
Kind of sounds weird. Sound like 99 Disney Lions.
Now, here's Jupiter and Vigo. Good evening and welcome to the GPL Podcast, episode number 277. Well, Vigs, we're back from our holiday break.
You got a holiday break? You had time off from things?
No, I only took Christmas Day and New Year's Day off. I worked the rest of the time, so.
I mean,
I know
you've so much hockey.
You've been really busy, mostly with coaching, haven't you?
Yeah, a lot of youth hockey over the break. A lot of World Junior hockey to watch, a lot of Gopher hockey to watch since we were last on as a podcast. So it's been busy. I got to coach with Wes Walls and Kevin Gorg tonight in the Minnesota Wild Spotlight game, which is pretty cool for our kids. You know, it's a big surprise. The Wild come in, Nordy's there, DJ, Anthem guy, TV stuff. It's a fun experience for the kids.
Wow, that is pretty cool. We never had that for our adult league games, did we?
No, not exactly. So it was pretty exciting. A lot of energy at Northeast Ice Arena this evening.
Well, that's good. Well, we're back at it. It's Ohio State this weekend, and who are we going to have other than Mr. Paul Caponigri? How's it going, Cappy?
Good, fellas. How are we doing up? It's probably as cold there.
It is.
Where you are. So.
And you were cold all weekend, weren't you? You were wearing that hat right there, or two of them. Didn't you say two of them?
Two hats, yeah. Cool, because apparently this is the newer logo, and I had the old logo.
Oh,
so
no.
Like, well, you got to wear the new. I'm like, well, you know what? I'm just going to see if this works. And nobody could tell. And anyone that called or not called, texted or messaged was like, you looked cold. I'm like, I was cold. It was a blast, though. I mean, aside from the cold, like everything there was done so well.
Nice.
The little details that obviously most people wouldn't notice, but Wrigley Field and like the NHL was involved. They stayed involved with the ice, which I thought was huge because there wasn't one hiccup, at least during play. I think, they were always checking it, but there was no stoppages in 4 games in 2 days. I don't recall ever seeing that much hockey and outdoor ice and no hiccups, really.
And the weather really held out, too. It wasn't really, it's a couple snow flurries here and there, but nothing like that would affect the gameplay or a lot of wind. Guys, we've seen it times in the past where if there's a lot of wind, they'll switch ends at like 10 minutes of a period to make it fair.
Yeah, I mean, they talked about that, but it's funny is we were up on like the top of the bleachers. We were the ones getting the wind.
Yes, we were.
Funny. So we were up there and we're doing the pre and all that. And then we had time and we shot down to the field. We wanted to go see the locker rooms. And I'm like, you don't feel anything down here. And then obviously with the glass, I'm like, this is perfect hockey conditions. If you're out 20 some degrees, little to no wind, the ice for outdoor ice was really good. So, I mean, like the conditions down there were great. We were just a little chillier with the wind up top.
And Viggs, as a kid, 20 degrees, hardly any wind. You'd be staying outside for hours and hours playing pickup hockey.
Yeah, that's the best temperature conditions to play outdoor hockey. And I think Minnesota's getting that kind of weather this Thursday. So hope to see a bunch of kids out there skating this week in Minnesota. But it's rare for these outdoor games to pull it off so easily like that.
When does it happen in our lives that we go from so carefree about the weather? Like kids don't care till like then now we're like, somewhere in our 20s and 30s that we decide that we can't handle the cold anymore.
Knowledge. I mean, literally when you're young, Oh, my feet are cold. Oh, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
My feet hurt. I'll be fine. When you get older, when anything hurts, it hurts like exponentially.
Right. It doesn't go.
More.
It takes longer to go away.
Yeah. It does. Well, before we get to anything, an important thing we found out yesterday, Viggs, former Gopher Steve Johnson had a liver transplant just last week. They kept it kind of on the down low for a while, and then all of a sudden he got the call. We have one for you. He had the surgery, so it's obviously starting to be very positive. And now they're looking for donations to pay those medical bills, which is just obviously, something like that. Insurance probably doesn't cover very much. But the community has really come together pretty quickly. When I first saw the donations, it was like 6,000 something. Now it's closer to 70. I haven't checked in the last couple of hours, but the hockey community has really come to support Steve.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. You can go to the GoFundMe that's on GPL. It's linked. We've got it on the social media. Steve has that autoimmune reaction that's attacking his liver. It's not like there's anything that he's done cause this. It's just, tough luck, bad bounce. And to see the Gopher hockey community, respond in this way so positively and help Steve through this is just really inspiring. Nick Angel talks about, when you're a Gopher, you have this alumni network. Well, they're coming out in numbers to support one of their old teammates.
Yeah, and Nick definitely did that. He sent a text out to all the guys. I mean, I saw some donations from hockey players who played way back in the 70s on the big list of donators. So all ages, all of the gang from the Gopher hockey community are coming together for this. So it's just positive. And if you need to know more about it, just go to gopherpucklive.com. Our number one story is that right there. You'll see a button that brings you right to his GoFundMe page that his sister Lauren has set up for him. So please check that out and donate anything if you can. Before the holiday break, Michigan State came into town, got a 3-3 tie with Minnesota, and then got a 5-3 victory over Minnesota, where that second game, Biggs, you could tell Minnesota just ran out of gas.
Yeah, for sure. They're playing shorthanded, 9 forwards at times with a D coming up in there and taking shifts. Not an ideal scenario for Minnesota. They've been testing their depth the whole first half. They basically have been hurt since the opening weekend in Las Vegas, dealing with injuries. And it just kind of caught up to them. And they were just missing too many guys. And you just saw a couple fatigue mistakes that cost them that game on Saturday. I think the coaching staff was hoping that they could just power through and get through the weekend. And, Michigan State, I think they only have 2 losses on the year, and one of them came real early. So they're a good team, and they've got a good goalie. So tough tests for Minnesota. I think they'll bounce back. I wouldn't put too much stock in losing that type of game. The second half here, I'm sure we'll get into it, but they're expecting all their guys to slowly get back into the lineup and have a full roster to practice with and prepare and play with.
And real quick, back up there, Steve says the donations are up close to $74,000 now. So awesome job. I think they've pushed the goal up to $150,000 now. So great job by the Gopher community. Sorry, saw that up there. I wanted to post that. Cappy, what's been going on with you? I mean, obviously, you guys just been kind of built up this huge outdoor game, but that's not all you've been doing. You've been doing more podcasts with Ben Holden.
Yeah.
You're kind of doing a lot of different things now, aren't you?
I mean, just I love it. I just like talking hockey. So
you do,
and Ben, Ben's great. We don't ever get to do games together, just because the regionality of it. He does all the stuff kind of in the Michigan State area mostly, and I'm usually either in Chicago or I'll bounce up to Madison or maybe Minnesota. But no, he's a great guy. We love talking all hockey. It's fun. It's kind of just for fun right now. See where it goes. He's got another one he's doing with Mike
Carmen.
Mike
Carmen, yep.
That he's told me they have guys lining up to want to get on there to tell their stories, and women too. So yeah, it's just fun, and we're starting to do more. I'm doing more games this year, which is a combination. I'm still doing studio stuff, but I got more games than I normally do, which is fun. And It's funny that Saturday night I was doing Ohio State Notre Dame, and I saw the score was 3-1 Minnesota. I'm like, okay. And then I had to go back. It was like intermission. I had to go back to our game, and then when our game ended, I looked at the score. I'm like, holy shit, what happened here? Because it just that doesn't usually happen. And then it makes sense. Like Michigan State, they aren't the most skilled team, but they are relentless. They don't give up. Their coach is really good at. They have built this temperament where nothing phases them. The Gophers are pretty similar, but they have just more talent. But they ran out of gas, and it's going to be very interesting next year. I know Bob doesn't usually keep more than 26 guys as it is, but all these other teams are going to be at that number, and things happen. It's not a perfect season, and sometimes you have a ton of injuries, and I'd like to see that number at maybe 28, but it is what it is, and it was an interesting first half, and but I'm sure we're doing more and more. There was everything's changed now with the Big Ten, at least network-wise, because there's so many sports that like October, November almost now is going to be really hard to get any hockey on. But what happens is they're doing a lot more December on. So it's kind of good thing, but good news, bad news that way. And it's always trying to do more, always trying to push more. I'm always trying to get more hockey coverage because that's our sport, right?
It well, definitely is. And Cappy just kind of mentioned it there. When Minnesota ran out of gas, it happened pretty quickly that Saturday night, Viggs. It went from, like you said, that 3-1 score to boom. It was what just happened.
Yeah, I think Adam Nightingale is doing a nice job of changing that culture at Michigan State. I think when he first got there was still some of that. You still got to show me what you have with this program. And now they've got enough guys who believe and have that resilience. You talk about good teams, they don't get away from what they do well, even when the score changes and they're down. They keep working, they keep doing what makes them successful. And I think that's something that Michigan State is now able to do because they've been on such a streak here to start the season. They've got the mindset that, hey, what we're doing is going to work. Let's just stick to it, and eventually it'll go our way.
And then we followed up with the Mercyhurst coming to town last weekend, Viggs. We are missing a couple players, obviously, just due to the World Juniors in Zemer and Moore, and then Coach Miller. 6-2 win and a 5-2 win. Got a little interesting Friday night when it was 3-2 at one point after being 3-0. I don't really know how to feel about this because they are the 64 ranked pairwise team. And us old school, when teams like this come in town, it's 8-0, it's 10-0, it's 11-2 or something like that. Didn't quite turn out that way. College hockey's a little more different these days.
Well, I think Minnesota started out the Friday game. They're out shooting Mercyhurst like 12-0 in the first 10 minutes. So, they were controlling play, but, you can see it in the game of college hockey. If you run in a goalie who's on his game, bad things can happen to you. Look at Denver. They play UNLV's club team. They outshoot them like 64-17, and they lose in a shootout. That kind of stuff can happen in college hockey. So you have to be persistent and you have to be consistent. The one thing I did like about Minnesota's game over the weekend is they scored goals in different ways. They weren't just scoring goals off the rush. They were scoring goals with shots from the blue line. They were scoring goals on special teams. Brody Lamb coming through again. They had traffic in front of the net. I think that's something Minnesota needs to continue to do. You can't just be reliant on rush scoring or a scoring line. You got to have depth and you got to score in different ways. And, one thing about this weekend is Bob kind of balanced the lines out because he wanted everybody to play and get their feet going and start the second half.
And also he got Eric Paulson back, and he showed up the very first game, a goal and 2 assists.
He's going to be such an important player for them in the second half. I think we started at the beginning of the year talking about center depth for Minnesota. Who's going to be important there? Eric Paulson's going to be a big piece of this team if they're going to get anything done at the end of the year.
Cappy, you played not that long ago. How was the mindset when you'd play teams that are clearly inferior to you, but playing you so well? Is it something when you're on the bench, you like, come on, guys, well, we can't let this happen here?
I mean, I think you started out like the way Minnesota started. You expected, I think, because it was the first game in about almost a month. So you're excited, right, to get back out there, and then you jump out 3-0, and then maybe, you think, oh, we're gonna run it up on this team, right, and everything's easy, and then you just kind of fall off, or And you're right. There's a lot of good hockey players out in college now. The line is a lot thinner between the good and the bad. And if you don't play at least your B game throughout, teams are going to, this is also Mercyhurst coming in. They're excited, right? They're playing one of the top teams. So anytime they see an opening they're taking us for granted now after they're rolling. It's a mental thing, I think, more than anything. But then they fought back. Like they've had games in the past years where they'll tie that game or something, And like you said, look, Denver can tie UNLV. Look, anything can happen. Quite frankly, goaltender game or not. So I think it's a mentality thing when you get up big. But they ended up winning 6-2, 5-2. Bob said, I talked to Bob today, getting prepared for the weekend. He's like, you know what, this was a great kind of just get back into the flow. Now you get a full practice week. You're going to have most of your guys. I think everyone is skating now. I think there's 2 or 3 guys that are still a week. He said possibly by Michigan State could be back. So I 6-2, 5-2, that's a really solid weekend. Yeah, I'm sure there were some hiccups, but also you're still very shorthanded when you've got 2 guys out and then 3 injured. But yeah, I mean, it's sometimes you just lose your edge when you're dominating a game for a while. You're like, oh, this is going to be easy. And as soon as you think that, things can change on you.
Well, in the 2 goals on Friday, one's, a power play goal for Mercyhurst.
Which the Gopher power play has been
gives them some confidence,
brutal.
right? They see a puck go in.
Yeah.
A little juice in their game,
Yep, and then the next goal, I think a defender, pinches looking for offense, or plays a rush too aggressively and just gives an easy goal for the other team. Those are things you do when you think it's a get healthy night on the score sheet.
Sure. Oh,
you're trying to.
Why not? I'm going to try this. That I wouldn't do this against Michigan or Michigan State. It just mental things can change in a matter of seconds in a game.
Yeah, but it's not winning hockey when you start doing that, and the margin is so thin in college hockey these days.
Cappy, when you spoke to Bob today, did you get into the outdoor games and maybe that he could have been glad he wasn't playing in those games? Because I've been saying kind of all year long, I'm glad Minnesota's not in those games because you're playing outdoor games with points on the line after a long break.
Yeah.
I'm sure all the coaches, at the
during World Junior.
Which
you had a lot of things there.
Probably the lowest year though in terms of players from the Big Ten. It was only 6. Michigan State had 2, and then Wisconsin had 1, and Notre Dame had 2. I think maybe 7 then. Notre Dame had 2, Minnesota had 2. But yeah,
you're playing outdoor for points.
Honestly, the first thing out of Bob's mouth, he asked me a question. I didn't ask him. He's like, "Hey, was it cold?" That's what he asked me. Was it cold? I'm like, "Yes, Bob, it was cold." Because I mean, you can see it on my face. You could not fake it. I'm sorry.
You could.
Maybe you could. I don't know, but that was the first thing he said. But we didn't really get into it. Aside from that, he was ready to talk about his team and had some nice long. He just seems he's in a very good mood. I mean. We'll see. Ohio State might have something to change that a little bit. We'll see.
Yeah,
because they've been a bit of a surprise this year. But no, he seemed in good spirits. You can tell he likes his team. So.
Well, it was all pure speculation on my part. Yeah. I just know he's thinking in the back of his mind, I am glad we're not there this year.
Honestly, though, I don't. I mean, it was right. Minnesota's different, but. Everyone loved it that was there. It was a pretty cool, it was an NHL almost ran thing, so it was a little bit better than maybe a couple of years ago. The Ohio State Michigan game was good, but then the ice had a lot of problems. And when the NHL is involved, it's usually done pretty tightly and all that. But I think they would have liked it. But this Minnesota is a little different. They come to Chicago, it'd be cool, but not as big as if they're playing at I don't even, where would you play other than Target, outside or the football field? They played Ohio State, which Coach Rollick said it was 0 or below. So
it was cold that night.
That game, I think in 2016, he said it was like 20 degrees cold.
2014 actually, but 14,
whatever
it was cold.
Colder than what this one was by like 15 degrees. So
yeah,
that's all I'll say.
That was a very cold night. I was glad I could go inside and outside.
You were there?
Oh yeah, I was there.
But you didn't stay outside.
I was outside for like a period and a half down there shooting along the glass, but
yeah.
I went down on the glass for the second and third period. I was like, I want to be outside and embrace it. Hey, the Norwegian saying there's no bad weather, only bad clothing.
Oh, but I had the big snow pants, overalls on, the extra. I did have the thing, which I can only see my eyes. Oh,
look at this guy.
There we go.
Oh, I was ready. He's getting ready for Valentine's Day. There.
Yeah,
got a month still for that, but no, I think all look at Michigan got lucky that they didn't have one player at World Junior this year, so and then they added a player.
And he did pretty well
immediately and made an impact. So no, you know what? It just was a really good event, and I'm sure they didn't miss it. Their goal. There's one thing. You talk about points, and God bless those points. I don't think Bob really cares about any points right now. He cares about wins, which equate points, but he'd be worried about what his team looks like in March.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. Yeah. And that's the way it should be there.
And I get the sense, like with the injuries and the timelines for players coming back, it's all about making sure you're in a good spot for March and April.
Wow. Puckhound, a.k.a. Thompson, I think. He says it was 8 below that night.
Oh,
I believe it.
It was cold, yeah.
This one, I think the low for the wind chill was about 4. Like it was like 18 with a wind chill to like 4 or 5, maybe.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the wind chill was bad that night.
If it's 0 but no wind,
you're fine.
Deal with that. It's when that wind bites you in the face.
It just sucks the life out, yeah.
It does. That's why the hat is still on. I'm still kind of getting the heat back down into my body.
Trying to stay warm. Viggs, you had a birthday on Sunday, and you got a great birthday gift on that day, didn't you?
USA wins another gold medal at World Junior. It is quite the era of USA hockey right now. All that ADM philosophy paying off. I am probably not the biggest advocate of the development team program in Ann Arbor. It's kind of centralizing a lot of talent, but you can't really argue with some of these results. I mean, USA hockey is just a dominant force at these international tournaments. And I think we're going to see it at the Four Nations here coming up again.
Cappy, I know you, along with quite a few other people, I want to see 5-on-5 overtime. I want to this 3-on-3. I'm going to put a little butt in there because international IIHF, they love to have their different rules. I'm just glad we didn't finish it, with a 10-minute overtime, if that, and then went to shootout. Yeah. I will take 3-on-3 versus 5-on-5 and then a shootout.
Sure.
So I think they're moving in a better direction, but at least they're playing hockey and they're not stopping to do a shootout for the gold medal game.
Yeah, I mean, if I had my right now perfect, I think would be maybe play 10-minute 5-on-5 and then play a 10-minute 3-on-3. And then I think 10 3-on-3 and then you just go. And then you play till the end. 3-on-3, it's not going to go that long. Somebody's going to score.
Well, they went over, I think, over 10 minutes or 9 minutes, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I mean,
gold medal game. So
you got to play. Play. This isn't soccer. They're not going to go for 10 3-on-3. Somebody will score, and you do the ice. So why can't you play 5-on-5 for at least 10 minutes? That's 20 minutes of time. Mm-hmm. Like if you're gonna do the ice and take that time, you might as well do it right, at least for a little while. But
it's just the goofiness of IIHF rules. I mean, I remember I saw it earlier in another game. Another U.S. game. I think the Canada game. I think Canada got a penalty. U.S. took too much time to get a player out. They called a delay a game on them. So, in our rules, it would have been 4-on-4 because they didn't really happen simultaneously. But in international rules, nope, we go 5-on-5 because 2 penalties happened at that stoppage. So there's just goofy little things. And I'm just glad we have plays on the ice, not the shootout, Vigs.
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to get 5-on-5 in these kind of tournaments. It's in season. These teams have to go back to their teams. I'm sure, Bob Motzko wouldn't love seeing Brody Zemer and Oliver Moore play 3 overtimes and then come back and try to play a Big Ten game. I just don't think that's where things are headed. I'm glad that they at least play 3-on-3 for as long as they do in these tournaments. Because, I think the Sweden-Czechia game went 15 rounds in a shootout. I mean, that's not a great way to end a game either. So I think just play the 3-on-3 out.
And they played their 10 minutes.
At least they're playing hockey to win it.
Yeah. They did play the 10 minutes of 3-on-3, though. So that was kind of a surprise, that they got that far.
Yeah, I mean, I just look at college, now I kind of don't love how you get a loss when you lose in overtime, in the column. I don't want 7 columns like we've seen in the past, but it's not a regular loss. If you look at Wisconsin's, half of their losses are overtime. 6 of their 12 losses are overtime. I think that's why they're kind of in the pairwise, not that far, being 9 and 12. And had, I think, a tough enough schedule, but I don't know. There's no perfect world, and you got to do it. But I hate seeing the full loss in the column when it's 3-on-3 because it's not a regular loss. It's just not.
I'm sure most Minnesota fans and the coaching staff of Minnesota would like to see the shootout go bye-bye and just end the game.
That is one of the crazier things in the history of any level of hockey.
I'm embracing it now.
That good at hockey that
I'm embracing it
now. At this point, it's comical, right?
Yes.
I'm putting my worst player out there, first guy to go. And
I think Beckett Hendrickson is,
and he might go in.
Yes.
Honestly.
Beckett Hendrickson. Go ahead, Vigs.
Beckett Hendrickson is probably now number 1 in the shootout list because he scored on a breakaway this last weekend.
We hadn't had a breakaway goal in forever.
I mean, yeah.
So it's so funny, when they went to shootout with Alaska Fairbanks, I was in the photo box during the third. So I'm there during the overtime. I'm during the shootout, and I'm just leaning up against it going, there's an Alaska player right there. I'm like, dude, it's over. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, dude, it's over. If you get a goal, it's over. I'm like, and that's exactly what happened. He just kind of laughed at it, but I've started keeping track now. I have a page on GPL that tracks all the shootouts that Minnesota's
I think
ever had.
maybe Bob will keep losing them, so maybe he gets second place in the Big Ten, so he doesn't have a bye week. It's like, I don't want that. I don't want the bye week in March where I'm playing 2 games in 3 months or 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it was. And was that 2 years ago that happened? Or
it's happened a few times.
Right.
It's happened a lot of
where they had the last week of the. It's not. I think it's Notre Dame. I want to say this year is the team in the rotation of having that last weekend off.
I think. What is it? The year that Duluth got in by that .001 Vigs was one of those bye years where Minnesota finished really high and they didn't play for almost a month until they found out they're not going to make it.
It might have been, and then that's the year they would have been all 4 Big Ten teams in the Frozen Four in Minneapolis or at St. Paul.
Oh, it's goofy. It's goofy. But a successful World Juniors, Vigs, Canada, they want to barbecue them up there. They want to barbecue leadership in Canada right now. And I just kind of laugh. I saw a GPLer suggest it shouldn't be this difficult for Canada to at least get to the semifinals. We've lost one of the superpowers. Russia's not there. So you would think you're taking out a really good program that's not even participating, and they haven't made it to the medal round 2 years in a row.
I mean, it's almost like Canada doesn't know their own game. They've gotten away from what's made them really good is really highly skilled players that play lots of games. And then they come into a tournament like this and they send some of their talent home and they bring up some small, gritty hockey players and try to play a different game. And that just doesn't work for Team Canada. I do think it's probably going to open their eyes here. Are they doing the right things with their development model in Canada, having all these players play all these games and play for all these major junior teams? Imagine if USA Hockey picked an all-star team from the USHL and sent them to the World Junior. Would that work very well? No, but they send all these kids out of the junior leagues into college hockey. They get that experience. You have the kids who play in the development program, and they're always kind of playing against older competition, and they go to these international events together and get that experience. And so by the time they get to this point of the pyramid, they're ready and confident, and they play a harder game, and they don't rely on so many mistakes. They create their opportunities and they can win these tight games. So I think it's an interesting path of hockey development that's happening in the U.S. versus the way it's happening in Canada.
And I was seeing some analysis of it. A lot of people are saying they need to just start over. A lot of it has gotten elite. A lot of kids are paying to play. They're spending a lot of money. They're going to all these elite camps, and they tend to pick those players. And I even heard some of these analysis says it's these rich kids who are getting the opportunity, and maybe not the blue collar kids that they have lived on for 100 years.
Well, I think you're starting to see the Canadian model narrow the pyramid really quickly, and you're not developing enough players because you're not trying to develop the best 12-year-old. You're trying to develop the best 20-year-old, and that's a different path. And I think a lot of the things that USA Hockey is doing the last 20 years are starting to pay off. I mean, we're seeing so many good, talented players come into college hockey that are skilled and can compete. And I don't know if Canada is doing the same kind of thing.
Cappy, but as an American, well, you'd love to see those Canadians lose.
Yeah, I mean, well, if it's become that political in Canada, then that's pretty sad. You see it at younger ages because like money does buy you opportunities in youth hockey. I think anywhere, honestly. But once you get to 15, 16, 17, the cream usually rises to the top, and you pick the best players. And if I don't know anything about that, you read things, but
apparently they're not though.
Well, that's what you mean.
And they're very anti-college.
Yeah, and that's fine, right? If they don't have to pick the best players they don't want to, but look what happens. Is Matthew Wood going to ensure them a semifinal spot? Who the hell knows? We'll never know that because they didn't pick them, and other players too. But it's sad if it's that political for 17, 18, 19-year-olds. Like, you should be picking the best players, and that's maybe they have too many. Maybe they have too many players to pick from.
They do have plenty of players.
That's what I mean. It's like you got 45, 50 players to pick from that are elite. Maybe the U.S. has that model where they have that program is most of those guys are coming from where that went through. And sometimes that wasn't the best because a lot of guys go there and they don't play a lot. Where they go, if they went to the USHL, they'd play a lot more because they're not behind the top 9 forwards at their age group. They're one of the best players on that team, and it's better for their development. There's so many different paths. I just really hope, you want Canada to be there. I would have loved the U.S. to play Canada in the semifinal or the final. That's what you want to see. And I think Ryan Leonard would have loved that, and that would have been great. He's the next Kachuk.
He is.
He's a great player, but he's going to be hated by everyone in the NHL aside from Washington Capitals. And, that's great because he's a great player and he's a nuisance. And that's great for hockey. He's got a personality for the game.
So undisciplined, Viggs. I've never seen a Canadian team that undisciplined. So many penalties.
Well, I think they get in this tournament and they're frustrated and they just don't know how to handle it. It's a different kind of game. It's a different atmosphere. There's a ton of pressure on these kids. And when it's not going well and you're used to things going your way, that frustration comes out maybe a little bit easier in that situation when you're not used to that kind of
Well, and the
crucible.
refereeing, I think, is different, right, Viggs?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a lot tighter in the international.
Yep.
It's, you know, it's probably not what they're used to, but you should know that going into this kind of tournament. I think, you know, while the development program is really good for those top 10 players who fill out the first power play, the first penalty kill, you know, your top 6, top 4, it's not so great for your depth. But those players go through enough tournaments that they get that experience, and then they can bring it to World Junior. And especially USA Hockey has had a pretty good coaching staff that prepares these guys for these events. Like they've got the secret sauce figured out on how to get this team ready and handle it.
Gold medal. That's all I like.
2 in a row, baby. And now
Yep.
they're coming for the three-peat at home. For the
At
first
home.
time in Buffalo 2010. Is that about right?
I think Buffalo might have been the last place. Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Let's go, Viggs. USA all the way.
Should be fun. I'm looking forward to those
That's
games
gonna be
being
at
here.
Excel, and Mariucci is the second rank, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Perfect. That's great.
I was talking to Craig Floor. He says, little chance we get credentialed.
Well,
They don't like the
American games are going to be at Excel, right?
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, he says they're very provincial. They typically like traditional media outlets and things like that, but still going to try.
Won't hurt to ask. Yeah.
That's right.
Of course, you got to try. You might be able to get into like the Mariucci for some of the, you know, those games possibly.
Could be.
Because those will be, the attendance on those might not be as big,
Mm-hmm.
you know, for maybe, you know, Kazakhstan and Sweden or something like that, you know. So.
All right, Viggs, we need to start talking about some of our sponsors here, and we're going to kick it off with Lunch Bucket Hockey, Viggs. This past weekend, Nick Michael got a goal, and there's nothing more Lunch Bucket than the way Nick Michael plays. I just think of him when I think of Lunch Bucket Hockey and the type of play he was having out there.
He is definitely your grit and grind player. You know, he came back for that extra year knowing that if, you know, the roster gave him the chance to play, he would get the opportunity. He came through with a goal. You know, that's somebody who you really want to see get those opportunities. They're the hardworking, unsung heroes, the greatest game on ice. Lunchbuckethockey.com. Check out their apparel. I've seen a lot of stuff on social media from them on Instagram with, you know, new things that they're launching. Check them out. If you're looking for some custom jerseys, check their website and talk to a couple local guys who formed this company by playing pickup hockey and trying to figure it out.
Definitely. And of course, we cannot forget about Jimmy's, man.
I know. I love the caramel dip, but we've moved on.
Uh-oh.
It's dill dip season. I mean, if you're trying to eat healthy in January and you got your cut up carrots and your celery and your tomatoes, your broccoli, get some of that dill dip. It's super popular. I go down to my local Cub Foods. I've had it on all my veggie boards throughout the holidays. It's been great. It helped me get through that tough Vikings game on Sunday. I just was like, I'm going to have a little more Jimmy's. And then I feel better about myself. So check it out. Jimmy's salad and dressing and dips. Don't ya be messing with my dressing.
And of course, we thank Lunch Bucket Hockey and Jimmy's for sponsoring the GPL podcast. But now it's Vigo's top 20 time.
Oh boy.
Not a lot of change at the top from your previous one, Viggs. Just a little flip flop of Boston College and Michigan State. Then a bunch of, you know, teams kind of all stuck in there. And then we had some shifting around due to Michigan losing and then Colorado College getting swept. So tell us what your thoughts on this.
Yeah, Michigan State looks like they are the tough team right now. You look at their pairwise, their strength of the schedule. I mean, they've got it going right now, and you just have to give them that little nod. You know, I think BC, Minnesota, Western are all right there. Denver, you know, came in as the number one. We'll see. You know, they have the magic. David Carl obviously has been on quite the streak in tournaments with the World Junior and with his DU Pioneers. So I'm sure they'll be in it at the end. I do think there is a little bit of a separation between those top five and the rest of college hockey right now. Those 5 teams, I think, are fighting for number 1 seeds. I was really surprised at Colorado College dropping 2 games to Augustana. You know, earlier in the year, Augustana had a good weekend, and I didn't put them in my top 20. They're putting together some wins. So I bumped them into my list at 18. it's hard to know where to put teams at the end here. I think it's going to be a real fight in college hockey to be at 14 or 13 in pairwise and get those last bids. It's certainly looking like a season where Atlantic Hockey and CCHA could just get one team. Minnesota State just keeps racking up wins. Rhett Pitlick's been a great player for them, and they have gotten really good goaltending. So they're in my top 10 right now. I really think the only way CCHA gets 2 is if someone knocks them off in the tournament and someone gets a surprise at large bid.
And, after Cappy gave you a hard time about a month ago about not having Ohio State in there, they've been slowly creeping up ever since, haven't they?
They keep winning.
They do.
They're winning. They should win.
Yep.
Yeah.
And now they have a ranked win too.
Yes, quality win bonus points are finally in the Buckeyes column there. So that's good to see for Steve Rolick's team. I always enjoy the programs and teams he puts together. I think last year his portal additions just didn't fit. The ones he got this year, though, looked like they were good draws out of the pile.
Yeah.
Let me see.
And the other thing to mention, ECAC is probably a 1-bid league too. You're looking at 3-1. Minnesota State, you have them ranked 9, but in the pairwise, they're like 14 or 13. So they're and if they were to lose in a playoff game, that's where they're gonna have to win all their games to stay up, because any loss they get is not good. It's it's going to be tough for them to stay up there unless they win almost all their games.
So Denver and Maine split at Maine this past weekend. Viggs, do you think any of the voters for the USCHO poll maybe also thought, hey, Denver lost to UNLV? They're not supposed to take that into account, but that was still big news, losing to a club team.
I think it was more big news on social media than in voters' minds. I think some voters probably don't even know they played.
I hope so, because you shouldn't do that, but people are people.
I might have moved them down just because other teams did well. I'll do that.
Okay.
If a team like Western has a good weekend, I'm moving them up over a Denver that doesn't play. Mm-hmm. Or I might. It's kind of like depends on who they beat, maybe. So in the other one, Colorado College at 15, which I have them still around there, they're 28 in the pairwise. They're out. They have no shot unless they win. Or they go, 12-2 in the second half, which going to be tough in that league. But they're 28 in the pairwise. They're not an NCAA tournament team unless they win their tournament.
I think they're better than where they're at in the pairwise.
Totally,
and if they start winning games in NCHC, they're gonna go up.
Sure, but 28,
like the strength of that conference.
You got to go. I don't know what the math is on that, but you're gonna, because they lose to Miami or Duluth or Omaha. Those are killers. They have 3 teams in that league where those are killer losses.
Yeah, they're going to have to get healthy against some of the better teams.
Yeah, either way, it's a back step a little bit. Because I still have them in like that same area where you have them. So, but the pairwise is what matters. And I think at some point I might just vote the pairwise.
I'll do that in my last
right, the
top
last
20.
one. Hey, I got it perfect. No, but I mean, that happens, right? And it'll be interesting. Arizona State. I mean, the Hockey East has got 5 teams, or right now they look like the top league this year. So it's going to be very interesting to see the second half.
But I do think this kind of exposes maybe one of the pairwise issues is when you have 3 really good conferences like Hockey East, Big Ten, NCHC, and then you have 3 conferences that are so much different in ECAC, CCHA, and Atlantic, and you have these independents. It makes the pairwise really hard, because ECAC teams don't play enough games out of conference to really rank that league very well.
Right.
It gets challenging.
The Ivies, right?
Yeah.
To the life of me, I don't understand why they don't play as many games. Whatever. I'll just roll my eyes at that. But yeah, you're right. You're right. There's no perfect one though, because if you didn't have certain teams in your rankings, and and 1 week you forgot BU. I've done it, man. I've done it too when I do my ranking.
I'm a rookie at this, Cappy. I'm a rookie. I need you to call me out, hold me accountable. I will change my best.
It's help. I'm helping you. But it happens. I forgot teams too sometimes when I'm looking at my last weeks. I'm looking at the results. I mean, it's just not, I try to take it I try to take it really seriously. I don't know how many people do. I mean, God bless them. People have stuff going on in their lives, but I try to, take it seriously and look at it for a little while, but it happens. You forget teams sometimes.
Cappy, I kind of want to talk about the resurgence of your program, Ohio State. Really, the only kind of real blemishes, they got swept by Michigan State. They got swept by Princeton. They split with Michigan recently, but really they're winning everywhere else.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of us saw this coming this year, but like Vigo said, maybe they're a little better at the portal than they did past years.
Yeah, and then I think one of their guys they got last year, Damian Carfagna, is now a junior defenseman, and he's probably their second best defenseman, along with Aiden Hansen-Bucata, who's the transfer this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then Brent Johnson, too, who's at North Dakota. He's had a really nice senior year. So those couple guys that are in their second year in their transfer portal that are seniors or juniors, they look a lot better this year. And then their goaltending has been fantastic. I think you'll see Christopher Everly in net. He's 10-1. He's got a .940 save percentage, a .135 goals against. He's a big guy. He looks confident now, whereas in the last year and then early this year, he just looked a little skittish kind of still, like a big cuddly bear. I think now he's more of like looks like a little more intimidating in net, for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then just winning breeds confidence. You asked Bob Motzko about that today, about Connor Kurth. He's like, the guy scored a hat trick in the first game, and that just said, oh, I'm here. And he's been great all season. It's like a coming of age moment for guys. And I think they've had players do that. And then you're winning all those games that you should win. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not easy to always, they had a very light non-conference schedule, but you see almost everybody blow one of those. And they didn't really do that. And you look at Princeton now, they're I think better than what a lot of people thought. And that rink, I'm watching those games it's a little box. So it's a little different world there. And they got outworked a little bit, and maybe that woke them up because then they swept the two Big Ten teams at the bottom, which, if you're Ohio State, you got to do that right now. You got to win those games to get, I think they got all 12 points there between Penn State and Notre Dame. So, or they got 11 of the 12. I think they had one overtime win. They're playing well. And like I said, confidence is a huge thing. They kind of their last game against Michigan, they had a 2-0 lead, and Michigan got, they had one of their games where they got undisciplined and they gave up some penalty, the power plays, and Michigan got a goal that way. Kind of like with Mercyhurst, you get a goal one way or another, and it literally flipped the game. And you kind of felt like they were just trying to hold on to get a 2-1 win, and then it was 2-2. You're like, okay, we just want to get to overtime, and you can't play like that. I don't care who you are. It usually doesn't work out. But they went to overtime and got 4 out of 6 for a road weekend at Michigan because it was their home games. Both of those were their home games. It was really good. Riley Thompson. This kid, I talked to him a couple weeks ago, number 9. He's their first line center. It's their really good line between Gunnar Wolfontaine and Davis Burnside. I asked him, I'm like, so you ended up in Alaska, Anchorage. That's where he went. He's like, yeah, it was my only offer. This kid's 6'3", 6'4", can skate, can finish around the net. He had 24 points in 34 games as a freshman last year playing, and I'm like, he's like, it's the only offer I had. And he's from Ottawa, played juniors in Ottawa. But his last year, he had 60, 70 points in 40-some games. And it just goes to show you, you can kind of get lost in the weeds as an older player in Canada. And he got one shot, and then now he's at Ohio State, and he looks like a pro. He looks like an eventual pro with that size, and he's a pretty good skater. Those are the types of guys that have helped Ohio State kind of surprise some people because everyone picked them to be, 7th in the Big Ten.
What do you think of Ohio State's resurgence, Vigs?
Well, I mean, we saw in the comments here, someone said, Rolik's a good coach, period. And that's very true. I remember when the Gophers were looking at coaches to hire when Lucia left. And I was like, Rolick doesn't fit all the boxes, but he's such a good coach and such a good program builder. And he finds guys like that who develop a little bit later. He's not going after the shiny players that look good at 16 and 17. He's trying to find those guys who are going to be good players at 19 and 20. And he does a really good job of putting a structured program together. I almost wonder if some of these transfers might take 2 years with him to kind of hit their stride and figure out how to fit in the Buckeye system. So I do think that they play a little bit more structured game. They have more routes. They have more pre-planned systems than other programs do. And I think it takes a little bit of time to learn that. And once those guys figure that out, Ohio State's a very difficult team to play against. And we were asking Bob today about, what's the identity of Ohio State? And he's like, they play now. There are some years they play real tight, real defensively. That's not what this group does. It's like they want to play some hockey and they want to take chances when they present themselves, but they're not going to chase. And so I think that's what makes Ohio State really hard to play against, because you have to not give them offense, but you can't take them lightly and just expect to reload and play only your game against them.
That definitely is true. Go ahead, Cappy.
Oh, yeah, just one other thing. It's funny. So now this will be my third kind of time through Ohio State and talking to some players and everything. And I think a true kind of sign of a good coach is when your top players start talking like you, and I think that means there's buy-in. Right. I think that just, and obviously the winning helps. Easier to buy in when you're winning, but you're hearing those guys like Gunnar Fontaine. And he's a skill guy, smart player. He kind of reminds me of how I played when I was there. Smart, skilled, but he's playing like Steve Rollick wants him to play and talking how he plays. And when you get those guys to do that, that is a key to a team that doesn't, they don't have the up and down talent level of Minnesota, but they've got good players. And when they're playing Coach Rollick's style, it's very effective.
Well, we need to get into this weekend here, but before we do that, we need to talk about a couple more sponsors here, Viggs. This book, State 1981, Dreams of a Dynasty, kind of the viewpoint of South St. Paul hockey.
Yeah, this book is a fictional retelling of the state high school tournament. Has a little bit of history, the first 35 years of it, but it's written from the perspective of the South St. Paul Packers in their 21st appearance. And they've never won a state title, but this is kind of a what if, a fictional retelling. So if you're into high school hockey in Minnesota and you're a fan of the big state tournament, this book's for you. Check it out. State 1981.
Definitely. You can find it on Amazon. And then finally, Viggs, Cub Foods. You're there all the time. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, I've got a growing busy family. I am at the Quarry Cub multiple times a week. You don't have to go all over the place when you're trying to get your meal plans figured out and eat healthy. Go to Cub. You can get all your proteins, your veggie, your fruits. Their produce section is great. If you need some jimmies, Cub's the place to go. And they're one of us. This is a local company that supports things like Pull Tab Sports, GPL Podcast, Gopher Sports. Check them out. They've got liquor stores. They've got beer. They've got your THC drinks if you're looking for that. If you're looking for a big Vikings spread for their game on Monday night, check out Cub Foods, cub.com.
All right. Of course, we thank Cub and State 1981 for sponsoring the GPL podcast. Big road series in Columbus this weekend, Viggs. I've been looking forward to it just because of the resurgence of Ohio State. I think it's going to be a lot of fun hockey.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be good, entertaining hockey. I think there's going to be a lot of offense. It'll be interesting to see how Minnesota's team comes back together. Everybody's skating now. Paulson was back in the lineup and showed his productivity right away. I don't think we'll see Nevers and Falloon quite yet, but they're working
not
their way
Nevers,
back.
huh? There were some rumors he might be back this weekend, but maybe not.
I would be surprised based on how Bob's been handling injuries this year. Okay. Cal Thomas also kind of working his way back. I think he's a big part of the Gophers' penalty kill going forward. So when they don't have him, it's a little bit more challenging, I think, for the Gophers defensemen to handle those situations. He'll be a big boost when he gets back. But I think they're slow playing those injuries just a little bit right now.
And they moved the Friday game up a couple hours, Cappy, to 4 p.m. local time. I wonder why they did that. And
4
I'm wondering
p.m. your local time, 5
yeah,
p.m.
5 p.m. there, but will
Why
there
would
be
they do
anybody
that?
there?
Makes no
Or
sense. There's nothing else going on.
yeah, will there be anybody there? I mean, yes, we've made fun of the past few years how empty that place can be, but football's going to take quite the precedence this weekend.
Well, I think that's why they did it. I mean, the hockey game should be over by 7:20-ish. I mean, you never know. Big Ten games, it's not on TV. It could go really fast. It's over by 7:20. Yep. The ball will not be kicked off till 7:45 Eastern time. So if you're a student, which the students I believe will be back this week, which would help. I mean, they bring their dogs, as we all, Duke loves and his love. I mean, it's
Barbie loves that. Barbie loves the dogs.
Dude, the dogs are great. We had our best interview with Rollick after the game we've ever had.
When his dog came over?
And it was during the dog night, right?
Yes.
And he kind of loved it. He couldn't believe we did. I'm like, hey, you guys just won. Dogs are everywhere. This is good TV. Nobody wants to hear me talk. I don't want to hear you talk either. They want to look at the dog. I mean, but no, I think it'll be okay. Obviously, Saturday I think will be a really good crowd.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Minnesota Saturday night. Everyone's back. The Buckeyes are 9th in the pairwise rankings now. I mean, say what you want. I know my Buckeye fans. I'm that way a little bit too. The better the team is, the better chance I'm going to go watch the game. Friday night will be interesting. I don't know. I think the students will show maybe, but it'll be a very interesting, crowd on Friday night.
BTN Plus only on Friday at 4/5 p.m.
4 Central for the Gopher.
4 Central. I'm glad because I literally finished my work day right at 4. I can just turn on the TV and just go with it.
Get some student chatter.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to watch the football game too, so I'm glad I don't have to choose.
Back to back, right?
Yeah.
With the Duke's Mayo Bowl, I had to kind of go back and forth with a bunch of stuff. With the World Juniors and Vikings, I had to go back and forth a little bit. So I'm glad I can just focus my attention on one thing at a time. That's usually how my brain works best. So I'm looking forward to it. I think this is going to be a tough series for Minnesota.
Yes.
I think they're still working through some things. I think Bob is so happy because he gets to run a real practice again this week. They've been so hamstrung with injuries and numbers and dealing with fatigue because Renzel is playing almost 30 minutes a night there going down to the end of the first half. So to get him back in that 24, 25 minutes is going to be a relief for him, I think. So it'll be interesting to see how they all come together. In terms of points, I feel like it's going to be really hard for Minnesota to get more than 4. So I'm going with 4 points for Minnesota this weekend.
Well, there you go. What about you, Cappy?
I don't know. Am I allowed to give predictions?
You can give as many predictions as you want.
I think they're going to split. I know now it could be an overtime game, one way. I don't have honestly. I've watched Minnesota play, but I've not watched like a consistent amount of it. I just know they're loaded with talent. I can't believe Renzel is playing that much. I mean, their defensive depth is pretty good, even with Cal Thomas out. There's, Whipple's your 7th, man. Tough first world problems you got there. I mean, it's just like Sam's playing great. I love his development also because I'm a Chicago Blackhawks fan and I can't wait. They need, they got him and Levshunov possibly in the next year or two. Give me some of that. They need that here. But the Buckeyes are playing well. Minnesota's so good. I think it'll be a split. I think I actually like the Buckeyes the first night. I think that's when with maybe the quiet building, Minnesota might be a little sleepy. I don't know. I'm just you never know. You just never know how they'll come out. But I think a sweep sounds or a split sounds about right. The way things are going.
Yeah, I think Minnesota went out early this afternoon to get Columbus.
Well, that's another thing. Guys are so I mean, everyone's doing it now. You're playing at weird times. It's not 7 and 7. I mean, a lot of Gopher home games are now because 7 and 5 o'clock, but the early 4 o'clock kind of in their mind game. Probably won't skate there. I wouldn't think tomorrow morning. Maybe they skated there. I think they said they were going to practice tomorrow morning in Minnesota and then fly out because we were going to maybe try to get Oliver Moore for a chat in the afternoon when they were in Columbus. So, there's so many little variables, right?
Yeah.
But I like that I think you guys were right. Cal Thomas is still out. So it's those 3 guys I don't think are going to play this weekend from what, through the tea leaves of it all. But I don't, those are, Mason Evers, he's a good player, but his role is very limited now.
It has been this year, and he's also
Hendrick,
a little less effective, I was to say, too.
Maybe just a few guys have passed him up, and
yeah,
sadly, it just happens, right? That's when you go to a program like that. It's you get some studs come in there, and a guy like Paulson, man, those highlights of him, he's smooth, man. He had a couple plays at Minnesota or at Wisconsin too. You're just like, whoa.
And that's where he got injured too, and all of a sudden.
And a guy we haven't even really talked about who's, I don't say he struggled, but he's quiet sometimes, is Jimmy Clark. But he does the little things. He's like a guy that won't get the points, but he's just a good hockey player, on a really good team. So it's gonna be fun weekend. In Columbus, it's good. I'm glad. I'm getting all these. It's a bunch of Ohio State games. I don't know if they're doing it on purpose or not, but I'm glad they're good. I got them with Michigan State in a couple weeks. That's gonna be fun. And then I have both their games against Michigan at I think the last weekend in late February. So that'll be great too. But I love the league. It's at a great spot. It's kind of, I feel like there's 3 tiers in the league that are pretty. It's pretty split into 3 groups. You've got Minnesota and Michigan State. You got Ohio State, Michigan, and Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin's there. Say what you want.
I think Wisconsin's better than Michigan right now.
Well, but they're in that middle tier,
yeah.
and then you have
they've just played
Notre Dame and Penn State kind of right now. That's just the way. If you look at the standings, it's pretty clear that way too. But those 2 teams at the top, they're definitely in my top 4 like Vigs. It's not even close. I didn't watch the Denver Maine. I have it recorded up. I might save that for March if it's necessary for me to watch those games for work. I don't know yet. Exactly. Those fingers. There's always new people working there, so you don't know anything that's going on.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I love where the league's at. It's so funny. I keep talking, but I don't look at the standings a ton. I just look at the pairwise. I watch teams, see if they're getting better, and I look at Wisconsin. I'm like, man, those are killer, heartbreaking late game law. Where they're just those pairwise numbers. It's going to come and haunt them because they could move up. They're like, North Dakota is 20 or 21. You 6 overtime losses. I think 3 of those flipped. And you're probably in the teens instead of 23. So I look at that stuff, intrigues me way more. I'm glad for the standing that someone's going to get a bye, but watching the quality of the teams and then the pairwise stuff is what really gets me going.
Well, Taylor Kearns here, Mote, do it, Jupe, and I'm gonna do it.
Sweep.
Gopher sweep. Gopher.
Can they
sweep. There we go. Here's a celebration.
All six.
If I do this, let's get some fireworks going. I think. Maybe not.
So all 6.
Well, there it goes. Yes. Gopher sweep.
Oh, man, that makes you look trippy, man. Right
there. I know. Anything else going on, guys? Or should we just get to overtime here?
Let's get to overtime so I can curse more. Kidding.
I already have to mark it as explicit. You dropped an S-bomb earlier.
I did.
It's all good, man. I don't care.
You just got to put the emoji in it now.
Viggs, any last thoughts?
Looking forward to see how Brody Zimmer comes back from World Junior. He was, Scott Wheeler in one of his notes said he was the most consistent player for USA Hockey during the tournament. Brings it every shift. Motzko's been glowing with praise about him all season. He's like, I'm not surprised I recruited the guy, but
Amazing.
he is
fifth rounder. I mean, that's what's so beautiful about that. He's
Mm-hmm.
he's an NHL player. I mean, it's funny.
he's going to find a way. He
will.
doesn't come to games and play a D game ever. It's always a B.
And
or
pro
better.
scouts love that.
Consistency.
You know?
Yep.
Yes. They will take that over some guy that shows up and scores 3 and then doesn't show up for 4 games.
Yep. So fun to watch him.
All right. Well, let's get to overtime then. That's going to do it for this episode of the GPL podcast. We'll be back next Tuesday, special day, because I know Viggs is going to be busy next week. So we got Jack Ramsey on the show next week, next Tuesday. Just wanted to note that. For those of you watching live, stay tuned for overtime. For the rest of you, we'll catch you next week on the GPL podcast. All right, Viggs, what is the beverage of the week?
Black is the night, Cappy's favorite, clearly. This is a Darkness Barrel Aged 2020. So this is a big one. So cheers. It's been a big week, big year.
Cheers, man.
Lucky year as well. One thing that was fun this year, I'm going to get to go to Kentucky and pick out some bourbon this spring. I'm looking forward to that. So cheers, everyone.
Jim Beam tour or what?
Buffalo Trace. I get to pick out a barrel of Stag bourbon.
You're going to get a whole barrel?
Well, I got to work with a liquor store to get it, but I get to go pick it.
Okay.
So
You get
that'll be
some
really
of that
fun.
Barrel, maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
Nice.
So cheers.
Nice.
So we're talking about the dogs. I get a text from Barb upstairs. Who needs hockey? Show me the pups.
Honestly, they should. I mean, so they do it in the first half of the season when they know they're gonna have empty seats, right?
Yep.
Because they'll fill it up like that. They'll Saturday night could be a sellout. Honestly, they could have 8,000 or 9,000 and have that whole. They don't. The upper bowl will never. They don't use it anymore, no matter what. Even if they sell out the other stuff, they don't open it up. So, but yeah, no, the dogs are so good, and then. When the students brought their dogs in the student section behind the net there, I mean, that's great. I love that.
There was a Michigan player celebrating in front of a dog a couple years ago. That was
NHLer Nick
outstanding.
Blankenberg was the guy.
Yes.
It's very cool. I mean, it's just better. Dogs make things better. It's just the way it is.
They do. They do.
So
I haven't seen a bottle of Stag at the store in years. It's tough to find any Buffalo Trace.
It's a
Buffalo
beer.
Well,
No,
The
I'm saying
Stags
the
are hard to
bottle
find.
looks like it's medieval. I'm not saying it's an actual one.
yeah.
It's like an ale from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I've gone red this week for Ohio State, just for you, Cappy.
Is that why the room is?
That's right, it's red.
Yeah, you're really trippy. You're getting a little hippie on us there, a little bit, a little Pink Floyd kind of action.
It's my office. It's my man
Your
cave.
man
too.
cave. It's
my man
your
cave.
domicile.
It was red, white, and blue for
Great.
for the juniors. It's I had the Vikings. I had some purple and gold going for the Vikings a couple weeks ago when I was down here watching that game. So
Love it.
I'm not quite on that plane yet. I'm just trying to keep it going from day to day.
Life, you mean, just in general?
Yeah, life. It's busy. I got the Pee Wee
You got
team that I
kids
got
and
going
everything,
on.
yeah.
I got
You've got young
the
kids.
10U hockey team. I'm doing school stuff, doing work stuff. It's complicated, Cappy.
Hey, you're living the dream though. You get to do
Mhm.
this and cover Gopher hockey, and it's golden era, I'd say. I don't know, maybe. eventually.
Bob is so relaxed right now. Like, he is just so easygoing. You know, maybe it's because Jess Myers is only about half the availabilities and isn't getting him worked up, but he's just so relaxed, and he doesn't
Jess
jump
is
on people's
master of,
questions.
needling, isn't he?
Yeah.
You know, so I was there last weekend for Mercyhurst, and I was, you know, apparently the first game, Viggs, there was no media. Nobody was there. Bob's like, okay, I'll just go back.
Dude,
And then it was only going to be me, but Drew was there as well. So Drew Cove showed up, which was great. Haven't seen Drew in a while, but I was tempted to say, you know, I got a question from a Jay Myers. He wanted to know about your goalie situation. I just wasn't. I wasn't bold enough to do it.
that was one thing I didn't ask about today. I kind of got bummed, but I not forgot, but he was talking so much, and we were on for like 20 minutes with him. I'm like, I'm gonna let you go now, Bob. But we didn't ask. That was the one other thing, but I kind of know what he's gonna say. Yep. I mean, it seems like they're leaning airy, but that could change, I think, at any moment.
Yep.
Yeah, I think he wants Airy to take it. Yeah. But he's like, I got to keep two ready. And yeah, they're both playing pretty well.
They both played, right, this weekend? Both games? They both played? Yeah, you figured that would be.
Especially coming out of break. You know, you want to keep it going.
What happens if they lose Friday, say 4-2, right? And then Soulier gets his turn and they win 3-1 or something. Does that change anything? You know what I mean? You don't know. Because Ohio State was doing that, not, you know, to flip it, but they were Friday, Saturday, all first half until those Big Ten games. And Everly won the first game. He played the second game. Then he ended up playing all four of those games. And then he ended up playing the first game against Michigan. So he played 5 in a row. That was the first time they ever did that. But then Turnus played Saturday, and he played good, but they lost. So you know Everly's going to play Friday, and if they win that game, I don't see how they don't play him again. So I'm glad I'm not a coach.
Viggs, I think that's what that's what Bob's setting up to do, though, Viggs. I think that's why we've always seen, you know, Airy on the first game. He wants to see, hey, does Airy steal a game for us in a critical game?
Well, here's the thing: that the weekend he got back-to-back starts, he didn't play great on Friday, and so Bob wanted to put him out there Saturday to see, are you mentally strong enough to not have your best game and then come back and play a solid one?
Yeah,
you know, that was the test. It wasn't, you know, anything other than that, and that was kind of a whim thing in a coaches meeting after the game. It wasn't like predetermined that that's what they were going to do. Sure. They just said, hey, let's go throw him back out there again, see what we got here. Because that's the biggest question mark, I think, with a goalie is how mentally resilient are they? Because it's really hard to scout that. So,
and I think
I feel like that's going to come again.
You know everything about Soulier, pretty much. You know, I think he's better now. He's got a better team in front of him. That helps. You know, I mean, so I think maybe that Airy gets another chance at that and see if I don't know. He doesn't look he looks solid, but he doesn't look like that guy yet, you know? It's I don't know. This year it might be better with Soulier in the net and come
it
March.
Might be.
I don't know.
Do you think Airy has a higher ceiling, Viggs?
Only question.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's a big athletic goalie, technical, very sound. Yeah. He's athletic enough to make pushes across the crease. I don't know how great his hockey IQ is at reading plays necessarily yet, but you haven't seen him go out there and just totally stonewall anybody this season. His numbers are good, but they're not eye-opening.
I mean, the weird thing is, or not weird thing, but like they're just not in any games where they are going to get shot 40-20 or something. And, you know, I don't know how many goalie games you're going to have, but you're going to need him to make that big save against Michigan State or North Dakota or Denver in the tournament. And, you know, that's where it's going to be the most important thing. And you won't know that until you're seeing it live.
It almost feels like this is a team that can't have a goalie that lets in 2 bad ones. You can let in 1 bad one, but you can't let in 2.
Yeah.
This team's got enough resilience to it that they can overcome 1 bad goal. But if they get 2, that might be too big of a hole in a big game.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're playing Boston College or Denver or Maine or,
Or like the BU game in Sioux Falls.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the goals were okay, but they weren't like
great.
great.
That first one, I can rehash this, but the first one to go in, they probably win that game. And that was a pretty awful goal.
Hey, I'm with you on that. It was.
And the Quinnipiac game, not to rehash that one and kill everybody in the chat, but like same thing. Like if your goalie's like a little bit steadier and calmer in that play.
Up from the comments.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the overtime goal or the tying goal?
Tying goal.
Yeah, I would say that
the
too.
Overtime goal was unbelievable play. No, the tying goal was.
Sorry for the pain, everyone. I hope you
anyway,
have a
but that's
bottle of
really the
darkness
only
open
question
too.
mark of that team, right? I mean, I said it in October, and it's ringing true. It's not even a question mark. I guess it's a question mark because you're nitpicking on a really good team. You're trying to find, okay, where's the chink in the armor? That's the only one you can really.
You see, that's where I need to see a sweep like at Ohio State this weekend. You're a really good team. Show us. Because if they're the team we think they could be, a sweep should not be out of the question this weekend at Ohio State.
Oh, every weekend. They have 3 losses, 2 losses, 3 losses. They have 3. And 1 is in overtime where they completely dominated Omaha.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And the Bemidji game, like they controlled that for the most part too.
Yeah,
and Michigan State's a game where they're tired and shorthanded.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Bemidji one's the only one that they had most of their team, and I didn't see that game. That's one that, I don't have that stream or whatever, but yeah, I think they're capable of sweeping at any moment. They could go into East Lansing and do that. It'd be really hard, but they could. I could see them winning 3-2 games or something like that, So, I think there's just you hate to say it, but get you to March if you're a Gopher fan. Like, get to me to March 20, whatever the hell it is, and enjoy the ride. Honestly, if you're a Gopher fan, enjoy going to these games and watching this team because I don't know. I mean, are they going to be as good next year? Probably. Who knows? But enjoy the ride. But yeah, it's going to be 2 months from now is when the season starts for real.
And college hockey is going to shake up next year too with the major junior stuff. Like it's going to be a little different.
Notre Dame
next year.
Signed 3 OHL players. Notre Dame. So clearly, I know that people are saying, "Oh, these guys are all stupid," and they don't do sport.
Well,
that is not the case.
No, it's not the case. It was the case back in the 90s when quite a few like Minnesota players that were high school went up there instead of played pro.
Sure, I mean,
or played college, I should say.
Sure,
I think some of these OHL guys are going to need like a personal assistant when they get to campus.
Well, especially at Notre Dame. So Notre Dame nobody takes their academics as serious. They think they're more serious than the Ivies.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, they don't play on certain days. They don't miss classes if they're in town. Like they have a game, they have to go to class. Almost, their finals I think were going on when they were playing Ohio State, and some of them were taking them on that Saturday before the game. So it'll be interesting. But I just think with that OHL thing, I just like it now that these kids aren't having to make a decision on their hockey lives at age 14 or 15 that they can't. Oh, I can't go to college anymore in the United States because I went to a tryout camp for 3 days in the OHL. I like that that's gone. And then maybe you play in the OHL for a little bit, then you go to the North USHL, then you go back, and then you know what I mean? There's just a lot of different avenues now, and I like
that. Well, and I think guys playing closer to home longer is better. Like, should a kid from Vancouver have to come down to the USHL to preserve his eligibility? I mean, I know he can go play for Penticton or something, but the hockey is not as good in the BCHL as it is in the USHL. So for their hockey path, it makes sense to play for the Winterhawks or the Thunderbirds or Tri-City,
Or kids
that makes a lot of sense.
Kids in Michigan can go, like a guy I played with in junior. His kid is 16. He committed to Miami already, but he was going to play USHL, and now he's going to play in Saginaw in the OHL. Or at least he's getting some games there now that could set him up for next year. And you know what? He's 20 minutes from home. You know what I mean? He isn't ending up getting drafted and going to have to play in like Wichita or wherever, USA, in Omaha as a 16-year-old in high school. He can probably still go to school at home or whatever, somewhat. So there's so many different layers to it. It's not all, they're, big 20-year-olds are all going to, it's going to help other kids, and everyone's got a different situation.
I wanted to also touch on the possibility, not happening yet, of a 5th year of eligibility that's being thrown out there now.
In all sports.
In all NCAA sports. Does that mean they're getting rid of the red shirt? I don't know. It's very preliminary, but that's some of the big talk out there. I'm like,
what does that do?
I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, I think what's happening is in college football, you're limiting these freshmen to 4 games in a bowl game or playoff games to preserve that for that red shirt preserving. They're saying just throw that away and say, why are we limiting these kids to playing just 4 or 5 games? What's the big difference between that and playing all of them?
So you're essentially, everyone has a red shirt year to play.
Play it or not.
Right. So there's no more red shirt years unless it's a medical situation, I would assume, if they do that.
I would hope so, because I think that medical red shirt is still a good thing for kids, but I think it's just getting rid of that red shirt thing, especially since they've kind of changed the rules now on how it's working. Because I think what's happening is your big time football programs are like, we might not even have this kid for 4 years. So why are we trying to keep him to only playing 4 or 5 games when he can help us now?
There's a certain receiver at Ohio State that shouldn't even need 2 years.
Right.
But don't you think so? Now they're going to go to this 5-year possibly, and then you're going to have this roster thing at 26 in college hockey. It's almost like the COVID thing, where you're giving these guys a 5th year, and it's going to backlog more players, and then you have the OHL factor too. I think they have to reassess the player amount.
Now, is it something they could, grandfather in? So like, hey, starting this year, like starting 26, 27, the freshman can go 5 years, and then
not the guy.
Yeah.
Have to do that.
Yeah, I would hope they could do that. But you never know. I mean, everyone's suing the NCAA over everything now. And somebody would say, oh, I want my 5 years. And they'll sue and they'll win because NCAA loses every time now.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but it's got to be really tough to be like a 17-year-old hockey player because it's getting harder and harder to get to college hockey. I was listening to like a Spittin' Chicklets clip where they're talking about, hey, club hockey, look at this University of Kentucky thing with this beautiful co-ed on the schedule poster. You can go do that. Look at this clip of this game in Tennessee with this club
How about
team.
this brand new arena that the University of Georgia has about to be ready for next season? Like,
right, Arizona's building a really nice rink.
God, it just baffles me. And I get it. It's all about money. But you've got these small little schools that are creating Division I hockey, and you have these mammoth money that have arenas already. I'm not going to name them because I've done it 100 times in the Big Ten, and they can't get a program, and it's just so frustrating, and there's nothing you can do about it because.
Like, I can't believe Northwestern is building this Taj Mahal
$1 billion, look, man,
football field. Where 20,000 people will watch a game.
How do I say this? They are at best a middling middling team, and it's a $1 billion stadium.
Especially in this era of college football, of NIL and portal, and the playoff. It's just
the word
haves and have-nots. It's not going to make you a have.
Blinders? Is it blinders? Or I mean, obviously they have some alumni that are saying, "Hey, well, they're helping," but Evanston also that suburb of Chicago is ponying up some dough for that thing too. But $1 billion.
It's always a thing in fundraising is that when someone opens a checkbook, you just keep nodding your head.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes. Keep writing zeros on there.
Yeah, I wish Rashad Khan was a hockey lover, man. He's a University of Illinois alum. Man, just a little. Just if he liked it a little.
Just $100 million.
You don't even, if they got $20 million from one donor, they would have hockey now. Anyway.
Would you have gone to Illinois over with OSU if it was there?
25 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. I mean, it would have been, I probably wouldn't have gotten recruited by them. I think they'd be a powerhouse now.
Connor, come on. Don't you remember when Grandpa Tolney was saying, hey, Quinnipiac, I think they still got some spots.
Pack it up. Yeah. Quinnipiac, he's calling it. Yeah, he's like, hey, when you sign with Quinnipiac? Grant. Good times. Yeah, but no, they would be, so if it would have happened, right, they were going to announce in April 2020, University of Illinois hockey. 1 month after COVID. That means right now that program would probably be in year 2 or so. I don't know if they'd be elite, but they would have a good team. There's the 5th most.
A Big Ten hockey program in the middle of the transfer portal era, they would be right there. If they hired the right guy.
You got a brand new arena. It's going to be packed all the time. You've got the local, but you're getting the local. You have your streamline of in-state guys that you're going to, from the 5th most kids in any state, and it's growing. There's 6 AAA teams in the Chicago area now. There's 6. There were 2 when I played. There's just so much more talent. It would be a knock out of the park. They'd be consistent, in the top half of the Big Ten, especially if they got the right coach, obviously. And who wouldn't want to coach there? Who wouldn't want to have that resource job? So, yeah, we can just keep talking. It took 10 years to get the Big Ten, so maybe it'll take 10 years from 5 years ago. So maybe in 5 years we'll have something.
I think it's really hard right now because of the revenue sharing. Every school is scared
all this
about
new
what the next
stuff
four years
right?
look like. Like every time you hear Mark Coyle talk about this stuff, the AD of Minnesota, it's like, we don't know. Even next year is not decided for sure.
So and how it's revenue now at Minnesota, you would know this. Are hockey players going to see some of it because they bring revenue into the school?
Like 5% of the 22
That's
million.
it?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Most of this money is going to football.
I get it.
Men's and women's basketball. Then
watching
hockey.
That game against Ohio State, there were like 400 people there the other night.
I know that there were discussions with the staff of like, how much would it cost us to fund a very successful women's basketball program, and what kind of return would that have? And it was probably the highest impact of any sport.
Yeah.
Because you look at the growth of women's basketball right now and women's volleyball, and the amount of money that's being
over women's basketball, to be honest.
The amount of money that's being invested in those sports. Yeah, the amount of money that's being invested in those.
Because it's specific to each school, correct?
You get a cap for your school.
Right.
So you have like $22 million. You can do whatever you want.
The revenue that they generate.
No. You get like your revenue.
Right.
And a percentage of it goes to the athletes. It's like $22 million.
Right.
And you can split it up however you want. Like BYU apparently might be giving it all to basketball.
That's
like all their revenue is going to basketball.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Wouldn't Minnesota hockey would get a higher one than Ohio State hockey if they're $22 million?
You don't need to though, because players are going to come to Minnesota anyway.
Yeah. Who decides?
You know what I mean?
Mark Coyle, is that where it's decided?
I think so.
Or a cabinet of people.
Mark Coyle's cabinet. So
well, whatever. I mean, it's scary when there's only one person make all
a football general manager.
Well, like once football gets their budget, Garrett Chernoff is like the football guy that kind of does operations. He will probably help be their GM to figure out how they're going to distribute their football money with PJ Fleck.
There's a job posting out there for it right now.
Oh,
I know. I've had people tell me I should apply.
I'll all football teams now, all college football teams should get GMs, or at least the top of the top. I think Ohio State should have one. I don't know if they do yet.
Yeah,
Sure they have a cap.
Barb pointed it out to me today at the Indeed posting on it, and it's pretty ugly, Viggs. It's most likely less than what you make right now. And
right.
it's a lot of work.
It's going to be a lot of work, I think.
It's going to be a lot of work and a lot of pressure.
A lot of work, a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Another
I've
thing
felt about other jobs lately.
Another thing I wanted to touch on is I think Hastings is starting to figure it out at Wisconsin, guys. They're playing much better hockey. They're not winning all their games, but they're doing much better than they were earlier this season. They've played a lot. They're not going to play for, Big Ten games for the next 2 weekends, so
Yeah.
they'll get behind a bit, but they are playing better. And it's not as doom and gloom as maybe we thought it was going to be for Wisconsin this year.
Well, they were 2-8. I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's doom and gloom just based on the fact that you were top 10 preseason, and they had a lot of injuries, and then their transfers started slow, and when your goalie too is doing that, that's going to affect you. So they're pretty healthy now. I think they had Hensler was gone, but he'll be back. They're off this week. Then they got Long Island at home. Hello, Long Island's higher than them in the pairwise. Where was that on your bingo card? And Long Island, I watched them play against Notre Dame this year, and it was hard to tell for sure, but I'm like, this team plays hard and they can skate. I don't know if they have a ton of skill, but they played hard and they can skate. And I think that's one thing you get from all D1 teams now is the skating is almost everywhere teams can skate. You used to watch teams come in, you're like, okay, we're just going to zoom by all these guys. That just doesn't – you're going to be better, you're going to be smarter in hockey sense, but the skating it's gotten evened out, I think, in the most. That's probably the thing that's with that. So, I don't know, Wisconsin, we'll see. I mean, you only can lose so many heartbreakers and how much character building you can do, but I tell you, man, if Quinn Finley's not up for the Hobie, I don't know who should be. He's been unbelievable. He's got 16 goals now. And, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, Snuggerud's been sneaking up on those national rankings
quietly
for points
too, right?
too.
Because everyone expects so much from him. They're like, it's quiet from him, but a guy like Quinn Finley's making the jump, and it's big. But that's just the way it kind of works. Although now, Viggs, you would know this, that chip rating thing. I don't really know what that is. I know it's a metric system, but I don't know how it's coordinated. But that has Sam Renzel as the number one player in the Hobie Baker race.
Yeah, it takes into account like your position, the competition you play against, ice time you play, the points you're putting up, how you're putting them up. Like it's a it's like your WAR rating in baseball
type of thing too.
Yeah, it all comes into play. So
okay,
those guys over at CHN, they can be disingenuous at times, but this is all math.
But that's all computer system there.
Yeah, so this is all computers.
That's it's like pairwise or so.
Yeah,
that's interesting. And they're not voting. I actually have my first Hobie Baker vote this year.
Oh,
doesn't Wodan vote?
I don't know. I
think he does.
I'm saying they don't vote on, right now, or you know what I mean on this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is great computer ratings and all that kind of stuff.
I'm pretty sure Wodan has a vote.
I wouldn't be surprised, and probably McMahon too, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, which is I want the people that pay attention the most to have the votes though,
and they certainly watch a lot of hockey. So
yeah, I mean, so. Yeah, Colby did his time and he passed his down to me. That's how that works. So
it's not nice of him.
Is Colby's podcast maybe infuriating some of the people in the industry, or
I don't know. He says it does pretty well. He was shocked that
he does well in that. Yeah.
I like Colby. Like he's very self-aware. He knows like he rubs people the wrong way, and he doesn't care, and I actually respect that. To be honest, he gives his true opinions about things. And that's good. Him and that is it Johnny that's kind of a good yin and yang there, I think. But he says they do really well. Like it's a good live show, right? You want to be watching it because they do it's a daily where they're doing news for that time. So if you're not if you're watching yesterday's show on Friday, it's probably not going to click. But if you're, if it's your drive to work, you're popping it on. That's probably like it's a good listen for hockey updates and all that stuff. So, yeah, we'll see. It looks like they're doing some ESPN games. That's kind of nice. There's a few on. I mean, there was gymnastics on ESPN2 on Sunday. And I'm like, good for gymnastics, but come on, put some college hockey on? Is it that bad? I mean, come on, man. Like, I'd love to see more. I'm always fighting for our sport. So,
like I tell everybody, it's like we have a great game. It's just like we got to frame it the right way in the right environments with the right crowds and the right people. You got to make sure those things all match up because like the game is better than it's ever been.
Did you guys watch like the Michigan State Wisconsin game? Like, so we were able to find a warm spot inside to watch the game for like 15 minutes. And we had to go out just before the period to watch like the last 3 or 4 minutes. And I wanted to kind of watch some of the game and look at it, but it just looked really good on TV. And the slow motion replays, it just looked, because hockey, that's the biggest fight hockey has is to the non-traditional fan or just the random watcher. They have a hard time following hockey on TV. I just thought it looked really good. They had the
the sky cam.
I
wanted to wipe the lens on it though, because
I didn't notice that part.
I saw Jupe chirping you, Cappy, on that.
Yeah, well, I don't know. He's asking me to fix it. Like, yeah,
I'm like, get down there and wipe it off.
I'm gonna go swing down there, and bring my wipe off, and then swing back. If I could do that, I'd be working in another industry. But it just looked good, and I think that's kind of stuff that'll help, people get interested a little bit more.
Yeah, I know when you're on TV, you don't pay attention to Twitter so much. I mean,
dude, my hands were frozen. I was not looking at my phone at all in my pocket.
Ben Holden he pays attention, and Dan Kelly will pay attention while they're broadcasting as well.
Yeah,
and Pat Micheletti will text you back during the broadcast.
He will. I had that happen to me just this week because he was asking about a play. He's like, I think somebody deflected it. I'm like, nope, it was a goal. He just give me the thumbs up.
Yeah, Pat's funny on social media. Some of his opinions are fun. I love Pat. He's awesome. But I just don't agree with some of his when he does his rankings on certain things. I'm like,
oh yeah,
okay, I love you, Pat, but no.
Well, wait, no, not that one. Where'd it go here? Somebody says, "What's your beef with?" I don't think we have a beef with McMahon. Woden, we're just.
I had dinner with him. He's just he's kind of just like, I don't know.
He's a pot stirrer.
He is.
Like, he'll bring the stick to the pot and stir it a little bit.
He does.
Just to kind of see what happens.
He knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing.
It's funny though. He lives in Denver though. I totally had him living out east. You know what I mean?
Well, he was in Ithaca,
right,
New York,
for sure.
So he's a Cornell Bobo.
It'll be interesting next year when it's Casey Jones's team. My old assistant coach at Ohio State will be the lead man at Cornell. They're struggling. I don't know. They're higher in the. I don't know where they're in the pairwise now. They're in the 20s, I think, too. So, and they were. A lot of people thought they were a top 10, team. So, I mean, there's still a lot of games, but.
Well, I think a lot of people thought they'd get to the Frozen Four in his last year.
I mean, they've got the same goalie they've had. He's really good. We'll see. There's a long way to go. They could turn it on, and if they win their tournament, they're in. So
exactly. And hockey is a game of goalie sometimes too. So,
but what about the downfall of Notre Dame though? They are just stinking it up right now. I mean, did they anticipate this? Is that why Jeff Jackson wanted to retire, or because?
Well, I think he wanted to retire because of all the NIL and the transfer portal.
Maybe,
well, he's not retiring. He's getting out of college.
College hockey.
He's retiring from the act. He's not. He's not retiring. He made it clear he's not retiring. He's just he's moving on to something else.
Yeah.
Well, like I said,
There it goes. It's all empty. There you go, Biggs.
They've signed 3 OHL. They've signed the most. And they're the only team that I've seen in the Big Ten. Has anyone else signed an OHL guy yet? I don't believe I've seen a signing out of our league aside from Notre Dame. They have 3 guys. So clearly there's a change. I mean, and that's all Brock Sheehan, you know. And I don't know what's going to happen with their staff. That staff has been Coach Slaggert has been at Notre Dame since before I played. And Paul Pooley's been there since the whole time with Jeff for 20 years. So I don't know. I think he's going to want to bring in at least one or two. I mean, obviously someone's going to have to take his spot of the 4 coaches. But I don't know. I could see there being some change up there.
Cappy off to inside with Mike Russo. He's tight with the Slaggerts.
Yeah. Oh, you said ask him?
Yeah.
Oh,
you should connect with Russo on that because he knows a lot about Notre Dame hockey. So
I'm not like hoping for it or anything. I just would look, if you look from afar, things clearly they need to change. They're bringing in a young guy. They're kind of trying to do the Adam Nightingale move there, right? A little bit. So we'll see. I mean, like I said, 3 OHL kids have signed. That shows something.
Well, I think Notre Dame's had a really tough time with decommits to other schools, decommits to major junior, issues with, their academic
Wasn't Faber
standards.
a decommit? Wasn't
Faber was a decommit. Yeah. Cooley was a decommit.
Cooley.
So there were some hard feelings there.
Have they officially signed or they've just agreed to? Because
they were agreed.
Rules technically don't change until August of next year.
Well, right. Nobody can.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
that's why
nobody can sign anything.
Yeah.
I guess.
And we're trying to figure out how's that going to change. It's not really. It's not an. Is there going to be a national letter
in terms of signing an NIL? Your.
Is there going to be an NLI anymore? How's that going to work?
It's still a contract.
Yeah.
Signing. I did my data request with you to see what they currently sign. So next year I'll be able to get the agreement that they sign next year and compare them. So.
Well, what's funny too is about that is, I mean, I assume it's not different, but I never signed a national letter of intent. I was officially a walk-on because I agreed to it 3 for 4. So I paid my first year and then I was a 3-year, like I had a letter saying this is what you were, but I never signed a letter of intent because I was officially, what I agreed to was a 3 for 4. And my first year I was not on scholarship, so I was considered a walk-on.
So did you sign like the financial aid agreement?
I think the next year I did or whatever.
Because usually what the U does with walk-ons is like you sign this financial tender and then you go through the traditional financial aid that any student would go through.
Right.
And you can get that as your
I didn't do that.
aid.
No, my parents, and we did out of state there. My parents were like, whatever.
Yeah.
Happy we have to help you 1 year and we don't have to worry about you. But we also had 2 guys leave. One guy got academically ineligible, who was our star defenseman, who really hurt us that he got academically ineligible. And then we had a freshman leave, so those scholarships opened, and I think I got like a check for like $1,000 or something like that. And, they spread that out to other guys that weren't going to eventually get any money or not as much. So that's just, it's different every place, I think. So there's got to be something more verbally committed, right, with those players. And
that's why University of Minnesota typically doesn't announce their walk-on type players on any social media until like enrollment actually happens.
Right.
And I know the fans get upset about this, but Minnesota plays it by the book. Like they have the strictest compliance group in the country, I think. And they just don't let schools get too deep in the water on any of this stuff. So,
What do you guys think? Do you think Bob's going to dip into that? Or do you feel like maybe people are going to reach out to them? Maybe like agents or whatever. I think that's going to be more the case. And then Minnesota, if it's a really good play, you know what I mean? It'll depend on the player.
If Michael Misa or Gavin McKenna decide that, hey, Minnesota looks like a great place for me.
How much money are they going to give them?
Not much,
Right.
but they can go play there for a year.
I heard a crazy rumor now about a school offering them over $1 million.
Well, that's the Colby Cohen.
Is that what it
rumor, right?
was? Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't for sure on that, but
And I think that's all just talk. I don't think that's actually happening. I don't think like Nick Angel's group is trying to do that. I don't think Dickey Town Athletes is trying to do that. They're so focused on what they're doing.
Yeah.
Hockey's not a big part.
Yeah.
Now, Michigan State, their NIL very active. BC, BU, their NIL very
that's
active.
Funny because when I talked to Ab Nightingale this summer, he made it sound like there was nothing going on at Michigan State.
Not at all the case. They're super active in NIL.
Hey.
All the hockey people I talk to say they're engaged.
I don't really, it's not my avenue, for me, but
it's not 7-digit figures,
right?
But it's 6 digits.
Michigan's got to be involved in it a little bit.
Not as much as you'd think.
Yeah, but they've got their next 2 recruiting classes are really like blue. There's a lot of blue chippers in there.
Yeah.
Horkoff was supposed to be one of them, and now he's there now. But their next 2, I think they're 06 or 08s, I think are really their class of 08s, I think is like 4 or 5 of the top 10 guys or something like that. They have one of their old Mark Kosik's son. Mark Kosick won a national championship with them in like 98 or 90, whatever that was. So,
but part of me is like chasing the 18-year-old player. You can't win with 5 of those. Like you can't.
You thought if anyone was going to do it, it was going to be Michigan with that team, 3 years ago.
Right. I think you can win with like 2 18-year-olds in your lineup if you have a veteran team to help them.
Sure.
But I don't think you can win with like a Fab 5 type freshman class and rely on that as your team.
Well, right.
They're
all trying to. Even Michigan's trying to do that, where they supplement, the Hugheses and the other Hughes, the one that's there now. The Drapers, the Estapas, the Truscott's a 5th-year guy, and he was a draft pick. I think they're trying to do that. It's hard to do it because am I going to pass up on this really good 18-year-old player? He wants to come to Michigan and wants to go to, like Minnesota and Michigan right now for the league just turns out NHL level talent. It's hard to say, oh, we don't want you. We already have 3 of you. We can't have a 4th. It's like, how do you say no when they want to come? They're recruiting them. The player is going to them wanting to go there, kind of.
Like Cole Iserman coming to Minnesota. That was not like Bob saying, hey, come to Minnesota. That was Cole saying, I really like Minnesota. I want to be there. Yeah. And then being like, well, okay. And then, he has some family stuff with the cancer, and he's like, I think I want to stay home. Okay. Yeah. No worries.
And BU might have gave him a little extra nudge, because there's a lot of options over there in that area.
Yeah.
And
but I think like Minnesota getting guys like Paulson and getting Beckett Hendrickson to take that extra year junior, I think that's so beneficial to those guys for your program to have guys like that.
We talked. That was one of the things we talked to Bob about because Jason asked him about Snuggerud and what, he asked him about him coming back and what he did this summer, and Bob was like, he did what all other kids did. He worked out harder with his team and he's bigger and stronger. And I said it about Chesley. I'm like, I saw him do his preseason press conference. I'm like, dude's neck he just looks like a grown man now. You just get physically mature. Like 18 to 20 is those years where you just grow naturally. So like, it's just, obviously you work on your game, but like, you're just going to get physically, as long as you do your work, you're just going to get physically more mature. And Minnesota's got it right. And the kids are doing it right. They're not feeling like they got to get to the pro level. Like it's like Panic Nation. Lacombe and Ryan Johnson played 4 years, and Faber easily could have been gone after 2. And Snuggerud, I think the only guy is Cooley, and look, he's doing great as his 2nd year. But
the first year was tough for him.
Yeah. Jack Hughes, he struggled his first year and a half in the NHL. If he maybe would have played in Michigan 1 year,
Casey Middlestead.
Oh, he should have played 2 more years of college.
Yeah.
He's figured it out now.
Really good NHL.
Now he's really good.
Watch him tonight against Colorado, against the Blackhawks.
Did you hear the Brody Lamb quip from Bob today?
I mean, he talked about him, but I didn't hear a quip. So.
He had a great one in the media today. He's like, last year Brody Lamb, wore his shirt, in the locker room all the time, and now after a season with Cal Dietz, he's got that shirt off and he's just showing off all the hard work he's done in the weight room. He went in the body shop and he got detailed, and now that shirt is never on Brody Lamb in the locker room.
Oh, that's good. I might have to use that.
It was hilarious.
Saturday,
I ran into Bob after the presser going up to my car, and he's like, I probably shouldn't have said that.
He
was
said
really
that?
funny. Yeah.
Dude,
I was like, it was really funny, Bob. It's
funny.
okay.
I mean, he actually probably liked it because he's getting a little extra. Now it's known outside the locker room, just a hair, and clearly he likes it because he's doing it. But no, that's enough. He had a really good start last year.
He
then
did.
He got hurt, and then it just kind of he never got, because he was the one of those sophomores that was the ascender early in the season.
Like him and Jimmy Clark were both like, wow, where'd that come from?
And then it disappeared.
Right. Well, and Jimmy Clark should be a freshman right now. You know what I mean? And what the plan was. So he talked about the junior class, and he's like kind of how Wood is kind of slid into that Cooley role in terms of that player that was in that class. And how those guys they're veterans now. It just naturally happens. You guys are the leaders. And 2 years ago, Middlestat and Chesley were the young guys on the D-core, on that great D-core, and now they're the older guys on it. And I want to enjoy the season. I want to do the games. I want to watch them all, but I can't wait to see what happens come, tournament, all the tournament time.
I want to see Snuggerud just keep going up.
Well, I'm not going to give any predictions on goals this year. That's for sure.
I want to see him keep going up.
I don't want to jinx him.
Because his first 2 seasons, he disappeared at the end of the season.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
And that's just it.
Yeah.
If he's getting stronger, you got Kurth doing much better this year. If Lamb keeps doing what he's doing, you got Eric Paulson coming back, who seems like the ultimate playmaker out there.
It's almost like you don't have enough pucks for everybody.
But if the players can embrace that, that's the best kind of hockey team you can have.
It seems like they do. I mean, it's not like he said. Bob, I don't think would be so relaxed. You've been around him enough to know if he felt like there was some I feel like he wouldn't feel as he could be like that.
Yeah, his first couple of years, like he was just super tense all the time about any performance questions. It was always on defense or change the subject, and he doesn't seem to need to do that this year. Some of the stuff with Lamb, it's like a lot of his goals are coming with some contact, and that's where that weight room work stuff pays out. Is like he doesn't feel the contact, he's still able to make the play.
And that just brings confidence. Like when you're bigger and stronger, that just brings confidence to your game overall, because you're going to win more battles than you're not. That's why you see a freshman get frustrated, because a year ago he was dominating in the USHL and he was the bigger, stronger. Now you're the little guy and you're like, shoot, I was doing this easily last year. Now I'm not. And you lose some confidence. Or if you don't, that's really talent. That's a really good mental to keep fighting through it. But once you know you can do it, and just the confidence level just rises.
And I feel like with Kurth, he's winning more pucks. Like he's getting to pucks that he never got to before. Yep. And that's the difference in his game. It's not like the heaviness of the shooting. It's like he's actually getting into the battle more.
Yep.
And that's what I think it's elevated him.
Yeah, that's the shirt off thing, right?
Yeah, but there he is. He's leading the team in goals, Brody Lamb, 13 goals.
He's leading the country in power play goals.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 13 is tied for second with 3 guys, two Big Ten guys, and then what do you call it? Finley's the tops with 16, but I mean Oliver Moore, he started slow. He was better.
Yeah.
Second half of the first half, whatever you want to break that down. Aaron Hugelin, man, guy doesn't, he's such a great guy that you're going to need at the end of the season. You just don't even think about him or worry about him because you know exactly what he's going to do, and he's going to be a great pro because he's going to be a great third, fourth line guy in the NHL. I think for a lot, 10 years.
I like what you were talking about Zemer earlier. He could come back and really just take off even more. He's got 8 goals. I mean, he's definitely a scorer here.
I would like to see Zemer get some power play time, and I don't think he's gotten very much.
The second unit, right? It'd have to be second unit, right? 'Cause you got Wood,
I know second
Lamb,
unit, but
and Snuggerud, right? On the first.
Yeah, but they had been kind of trying to do 3 units throughout the first half of the year, and I just
Which is
I know
crazy.
Bob's getting frustrated at times with guys in the power play not executing. It's like at some point you're gonna have to make the call that some guys are getting pulled.
Hey man, first world problems again. 3 power play units. Most teams can't get a second one. Or a legit second one,
Well, I think the
What
reason
about-
Bob does that is for development. I talk about this all the time on our podcast. I know some people may be sick of it, but Bob plays everybody. That's one of the things that I think makes him such an attractive coach to recruits and makes them successful is he gives everybody chances.
Yeah.
And if you don't produce and the second half of the year, those chances disappear, but you get the chance to show what you can produce.
Yeah. Or he'll wait till you're ready to get the chance, maybe. Like if you're
I think with freshmen,
with
freshmen, he's like
you're
that,
not getting it right away, but maybe second half, Zemer, if he's seen enough, you're going to get that spot or at least a crack at it. And I think it's always good to keep guys hungry too. And he kind of got a luxury of, we're going to be there at the end. So let's tinker and let's let these other guys try it. Whereas other teams are like, man, I got to play our top guys 30 minutes because I need to get us there. Or they need
well,
to
and obviously he did that with Renzel here down the stretch. He leaned on him hard. One of the great things about the CHN, I was giving Woden a hard time earlier in the show here, but them putting that time on ice in their stat page stuff is sweet.
Yeah.
I love it.
Who's
Love
doing
seeing
that
stuff.
now, by the way? Because it is all over college.
They partnered with Instat,
Okay.
and so I don't know if they're paying them or if Instat's doing
Are
something.
players
But
wearing some? Is there something in their jersey or helmet or something?
It's on their back.
Okay.
well, the teams have that, Jude.
That's
but
what I'm saying.
Oh,
So then they
Instat-
all-
But they're
Instat's-
getting the stats from that, aren't they?
No, Instat's doing video stuff. That's why it's not
Really?
always accurate.
I thought
early
it'd
in
be
the
Do
year,
they have interns doing it or something?
yeah, interns were reviewing video and trying to do time on ice, and there were a couple situations where a player was injured and obviously wasn't getting time on ice, but it was still being logged.
Right.
So it was a little sketchy early in the year,
Right,
but now
right.
it's pretty good.
Key-
And so, with your top players, it's pretty accurate.
Could they not use those sensor packs and get that data from the schools, or
Do you
would they
think
just
the schools,
not share
you
that?
think schools are just going to give that out? It's I can't even
I
know
don't
who's going
know.
to play
It
this weekend.
Seems to make sense to me. I saw that first machine. I showed Michigan State had that outside of their locker room. It's the first time I'd ever seen those. It's just literally a big suitcase where they just drop it. It's all, like a bunch of pagers going into one thing. They're just dropping their thing in there, and it was.
I saw a
uploading your
Squirt
laptop.
A team from Omaha playing Roseville this weekend, and they had those in
Are
their
you
jerseys.
serious? Squirt
And Oscar
A?
Johnson.
Lord help.
Oh, Oscar
Lord help
Johnson.
you sports. That's all I gotta say.
I saw some Omaha players, Squirt A and Oscar Johnson, wearing chips and having the luggage
Come
thing.
Come on, man. Squirt. That's 9 and 10-year-olds.
Yes. They did a little trip through the metro last weekend, and one of them was against Roseville at Oscar Johnson. So I'm glad they had the GPS and heart rate data, though. It was good.
But I can't imagine doing that manually. That's a lot of work.
People want to get into building their resumes
And
on video
TV's
work.
not. How does TV pick it all up? You mean, are they getting wide shots? I mean, that's.
It's the great mystery of how it works. but
Probably it's got some probably plus or minus some seconds.
yeah.
I don't know. I wonder. I mean, because you could.
we won't be able to tell on our broadcast Saturday night. We won't
That's because
see
you'll be
all-
at a studio.
we
You'll be
won't
at a
see all the
studio in
players.
Chicago.
That's my sarcasm.
Well, it's not like the NHL where it's live, but like I'm just looking at the CHN stuff on Renzel. He played 30 minutes and 29 seconds against Michigan State,
Michigan
on the
State.
13th.
Was that the overtime game?
Yeah. And
Okay.
so the next night he
Still.
played 23-35, but
Okay. Well, because they
But
still
you
had
could see it
six.
creep
They
up.
had 6D, right?
yeah, they had enough D. Like they could have,
They just shortened it.
they just shortened it.
Because usually they
They have
have
the
been
two
playing
freshmen that
7D.
Don't play a ton, like Gruba. And
Yeah,
No.
Gruba and Whipple are still kind of being integrated. I think Gruba's getting more confident. Whipple still
Dude,
has
that
a
one-
pretty
that-
high panic.
Dude, that one timer he had as he walked into it was freaking crazy. That was
He's a-
NHL bombo right there.
He's a solid dude.
Yeah.
Like
He's an older
put
guy
together.
too, right? He's a 20-year-old, right?
Yeah, he was great in the USHL last year. So,
Yeah.
and he
He's
was a
another
flip.
guy. It's just
He was a late flip. You know, he wasn't
he's
committed to
gonna be
Minnesota
a
right
guy.
away, but
he's going to be a stud in a year whenever Renzel leaves, It's, you would think he'll just kind of slide right up.
But Bob, early in the season, before there were some injuries, he was playing 7D. And I think the more recently, when they were short, they were playing 6D, and some of the Ds could play D, but they were playing forward.
yeah. I mean, Gruba and Whipple will definitely getting like that under 10 minutes of ice a game, but they're playing, and they were playing at the end of the game too. Like they were playing in some key situations. Like I think Gruba and Whipple got some key shifts throughout games, and I've talked to him about this, and he's like, you can coach kids as much as you want in practice, but until you have game film of them succeeding or failing, it's hard to get through to them.
Sure.
They are not going to look at practice film or get feedback from practice coaching and correct everything. They need to see it for themselves in a game situation, whether it worked or didn't. And that's how you grow as a player.
Yeah, I mean, Whipple, they literally told him, hey, go play another year at junior if you want, right? And he chose to come knowing so that clearly he was prepared for, like, whatever happens, right?
He wanted to be here for this year.
This is kind of a redshirt year, right? I'm only playing 8 minutes, so it doesn't count as a freshman, right? I'm a redshirt.
Well, yeah, he's been playing more lately, but he has been more
Sure.
of that seventh defenseman when Thomas is back in the lineup. He's getting mixed in there, but
And he clearly knew that going in. Like I've
Mhm.
talked to him, I've talked to the coaching staff, and like he knew that, but he wanted to be part of this team this year.
Yeah. I wonder, do they have, recruit-wise for next year, I got to imagine it's up in the air.
Very much up
Got
in the air.
3 or 4 guys that could leave, but also could come back. Kinda
Bob
like the
doesn't
guys
want
that,
to.
those 3, Faber, Johnson, Lacombe, it would be Middlestat, Chesley, Renzel.
We've had 3 availabilities where signing day and recruits have been brought up to Bob during availability, and he's like, guys, I know you want to ask, and I respect it, but it's like I don't want to talk about it yet because we don't know.
Yeah.
And we've got
You
some
might not know
talented
until
players.
April.
Yes. And
Those
like
guys
the
might,
kids
if
know.
if they win it all, they might all leave.
Yep.
If they don't, they might all come back.
So he's dodging talking even about signed players coming in next year.
Yep.
Because he has no
He
idea
doesn't know.
quite what's going to happen.
But a couple of those defensemen are awfully large. Vasio Phillips, 6'5", 214. Jacob Rumbach, 6'6", 201.
Wow.
Those are the guys who decided. Doesn't mean they're coming in, but
Eventually, one way or another.
potentially they
most
could
likely.
be.
And I heard Matthew Grimes took Minnesota off his bio on Instagram
Oh,
as
really?
committed, but Sioux Falls doesn't publish line charts with stuff
Their-
on social
with their-
media.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a question mark right now.
Because he did sign.
So
That doesn't mean anything nowadays.
doesn't mean anything.
True, but I'm just saying that's
No,
but I
know,
see people reacting.
Sadly,
Yes.
it doesn't mean anything. Yeah.
So it's very confusing. And with all the stuff happening with college hockey in the next year, like there's a lot of chaos coming.
Yeah.
and that's true. Like if you get a CHL guy who wants
Might be
to
going
come
in
here,
the portal, or he might go to an OHL guy or a WHL guy,
Or you might want more ice time somewhere for another year, I mean, as a hockey player, you want development. You want ice time. You want top situations. Like for Whipple coming here this year might slow his development a little bit, or maybe he needs more weight room and development time to perform at this level. It's really hard to know. It's different for every kid.
Well, and hey, he realizes he's probably a 3 or 4 year guy at least, and there's nothing wrong with that.
There is nothing wrong with taking longer to bake.
Jackson
or maybe
Cole's got
5
8
years
goals now as a defenseman in the NHL, second year, and he's 24. Oh no, he's only going to play another 12 years instead of 14. Or you know what I mean? Like, I get it. You want it. You're like at 20, you don't see the picture 15 years later. We're all older now. We know patience, but like, God, like even Logan Cooley, if he would have came back another year, I'm watching him right now. Like, he'd probably be doing almost exactly the same, right? And he might have had a natty with it, But
might have a natty and a Hobie if he stuck around,
God, I mean, I don't know how he does.
Did you
I think
see
Bob really wanted to say it today. Like, can you
70,
imagine
80
Matthew
points.
Nyes as a college senior right now?
And Logan Cooley as junior?
that hat trick the other night was sick.
Yeah. And he had scored in like 1 goal in 16.
Yeah.
Now he scored the game winner again last night.
Oh. Yeah, he had some kind of weird
Logan Cooley
backhand
just
deflection,
scored.
and then that when he comes in and it just goes around but behind him, and like this is ridiculous.
Cooley just scored in the Florida.
Oh, did he?
Game literally just now.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
But you could also say that with other teams. I mean,
there's so many instances.
Yeah.
One's different. Fantilli has had a slow start in the NHL, but I mean, he was a Hobie Baker winner as a freshman. I mean, like, how much? Only reason you come back is to win a national championship if you're him.
And you have to have that motivation to come back too.
Right. You don't want to be you want to go back.
Don was always about that. He's like, if you come back, it's got to be for the right reason. You can't come back because it's either your only option or you feel a responsibility to come back.
Right.
You have to come back with a mission.
Right.
And if you want to be out, be out.
Good that Cooley changed his mind because I think deep down he wanted to leave.
He wanted to leave. Yeah,
And he was
even when he was here, he was like,
he would have tried to fight himself off, and he probably would have. I don't want to say struggled. Struggle for him would have been probably 50 points, but
he would have been distracted.
Sure. Oh, so another thing Bob said about that part is like, he's like, Cap, when you have kids, like, when you have kids, when you go back, when you have kids that are 6, 7, 8, 9, and you want to show them where you played hockey, you take them back to your school. You take them back to the University of Minnesota, and you show them your jersey on there or your team that you won a championship. You don't take them to the American League rink you played in. You don't take them to Binghamton or wherever. No offense to these places, but you don't take your kids to those places. You take them back to where you went to college, where you had the best time of your life. So that's why these kids maybe want to stay longer, or they understand that this is the best time, at least in your hockey, where you're going to you're never going to have a better time in hockey where it feels pure. So I thought that was pretty funny interesting that he said that.
I've actually heard that from Jordan Leopold and Johnny Pohl. Is like when they come to the rink with their kids, they kind of point to that stuff.
Where's
and
Jordan
the flip
Leopold
side
going to the Minnesota Gophers? He's not going to where he played in the NHL for years.
Yeah, and on the flip side of that, like when Johnny Pohl and Jordan Leopold would run into people in like public who were older, they'd be like, "Oh, you played for Calgary in the Wild, or you played for Toronto."
Sure.
He's like, the people outside of their circle see that NHL or that pro career, but the player themselves sees something different.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting dynamic that I've picked up on over the years too.
I think the thing I asked him was like, because I knew kind of they did. I had heard that Snugger would talk to Faber a lot, kind of when he was making his decision, because Faber easily could have left.
Mm-hmm.
He came back for a third year, and then he was close to being rookie of the year. You could argue he should have been. Whatever. He's going to be a star now. Him and Zeke William. Good Lord.
Let's get him on the team
So
right now.
That pair is going to be so good for the Wild for the next 15 years. But, like, he probably had a great conversation with him and some of those other guys that he knows well. It's like, dude, enjoy your time in college, because it's gone forever once you're done. And also, like, I just felt bigger and better and stronger after I was 21 going in instead of 20. And that was that quote in Armstrong. Was that quote yesterday about St. Louis and how Jimmy should pack a heavier bag for the Frozen Four, and that's great.
Hey, if we're at the Frozen Four, let's go. Who cares?
Well, right. I just thought it was kind of, GM said that. And,
Oh, yeah.
I truly think he meant it. Like, he wants to see him do well, because it's only going to make him be a better pro if he does, wins. Winning is contagious. You win things, you bring a winner into another program.
I did hear that St. Louis really wanted to sign him last year.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then they want to sign him the day after the Frozen Four, because they don't want him to have any inkling of thinking that he could become a free agent.
But maybe it's kind of the opposite then there, Viggs. He looked at the pro at the time. He's like, I don't know. He's like, I kind of like my situation in college another year.
What I think Jimmy felt like he let everybody down last year, and that he wanted to resolve that with another shot at it. It's always hard to read him as a interview.
He doesn't give you much.
Quiet dude. Yeah.
He's tricky, but I get the sense that he knows more than he lets on with everything, but he knows more.
Yeah.
And he's heard all the noise, and he knows, and it's almost like sometimes he will hear the podcast sometimes, be like, yeah, I know I need to do that. I know. I'm going to win more pucks. I'm going to be more than just a shooter. I'm going to be a leader. I'm going to be stronger. I'm not going to show frustration. And he's growing. He's growing as a player. He's a young kid.
That's what I wanted to mention. The last 10 games or whatever, I haven't seen him do.
Right.
It's been a while.
And
if he misses something, you don't see any reaction.
He's right back in the next play. He doesn't take that self-time to do that. He just
goes.
Yeah.
How many times is that going to happen in the NHL? Because you're going to a league of big, grown, strong men. And I'm telling you, his buddies had to have told him, Cooley, Faber, Nyes. I mean, Nyes, a big kid. And he had a rough time his first full year. He kind of came on in the playoffs and just kind of went with it. But these guys just don't come in and you just outman these giant dudes. You need to get bigger and stronger. I guarantee that was a huge part of the conversations those guys had. Faber's like, man, these guys are big and strong. You need to be, if you want to come into this league right away and actually succeed, you need to have this, and this. Do you feel
and Faber talks about, in the NHL, you can't make a pass off your back foot because someone's going to step and pick it. You have to make hard passes. You have to play with intent.
You have to make hard plays on the wall. Everything.
Right. You always have to be ready for contact. You always have to be ready to engage. You just can't get away with that at this level. And what Faber says is the best thing is you can count on your teammates to do that. So you don't have to always hedge and cover because they're going to do the right thing or they're not going to be there.
So many smart players, right?
He's like, everybody's smart. So that makes it almost easier to play sometimes because you can count on your teammates. Where in college, it's like, oh, what is he going to do? Is he going to cover for me? Is he going to hang back?
Yeah.
Do I have to make a back foot pass because I'm going to have to go back the other way anyway?
Sure. I was talking to Isaac Howard before one of their games that we were doing, and he said, I said, what does Tampa tell you about what they want to see? He's a first-round pick, Tampa Bay Lightning, and he's like, they could give a rat's ass about his goals and assists and stuff like that. They want to see him getting pucks out, playing in tough areas, winning board battles, all that stuff that you would do in pro hockey day in and day out. That's what they care about. They could give a shit if he has 12 goals and 4 assists only. But if he's doing all the little things, that's what they care about.
I talked to a scout, and we were talking about Brody Zemer, and they're just like, man, wish we had that kid. He does everything right. You do not have to worry about him.
5th round, huh?
Yeah. he's like, I kind of was at the table for him, and we just
keep pushing him. Oh, let's try to get him next round or that.
Yeah. Well, he's not ranked.
Right.
He's not ranked high enough to take the risk. Like, we'll get him.
And that's the other thing I love about college hockey is these kids that are 4th, 6th, 7th rounders get to clean develop for 3 or 4 years until they're 22, maybe. OHL, if you're not ready at 20, you're in the coast or wherever.
Well, you look at Cappy, I'm sure you don't follow the Wild as well, but like the Wild had this cradle of defensemen that were all like supposed to be like ready to play.
Blue chipper
like,
guys, right? Or whatever. Right.
Like none of them are. Like Damon Hunt got traded. Carson Lambos is still there. I'm not an expert like some of the State of Hoppy and Spoke Z are, but
yeah.
There's a bunch of guys there that they're not ready. They traded for Jirasek because they need
may
another
never
guy.
be ready.
Right.
Yeah, Columbus got rid of a top 6 guy or top 6 pick because when he went up there, he wasn't as good as they hoped, and then he got mad, and then it was contentious, and then boom, you got to go.
Yeah. It's okay to bake a little bit.
What's that?
It's okay to bake a little bit in college or AHL or whatever,
I mean, I don't know if Artem Levshinov's going to play a game for the Blackhawks this year. Number 2 pick in the draft. Could be playing, he was a different situation because he was like a total wild card that he went to state,
Yeah.
So, anyways, good stuff.
Maybe Kids Dean Bunny.
Almost midnight. You guys are, we just can ramble.
Yeah, it is.
It's been fun.
I'm good with it. I just all of a sudden looked at the clock. I'm like,
Cappy, I'm a little hyped up. I was with Kevin Gorg and Wes Walls tonight. I had a big day.
And you had a solid beer in front of you there.
Solid beer in front of me.
A liter of beer.
Not finished yet. I'm still enjoying.
Gotta finish it.
Nice.
Mote.
Yeah, I think
great overtime.
Chocolates. last Friday and Saturday. I think I had it. Those girls, they did a great job. We had like 2 kind of helping get us some food and some drinks. And I'm like, just hot chocolate and then 1 meal. Give me whatever. Chick-fil-A we had one night and small cheval, like cheeseburger and fries. And it was like gold. Just anything warm. I mean, honestly, though, I had a blast. And it was fun to kind of be out in the cold. And I'm sitting here today, knock on.
How did Pizzo do? How did Pizzo handle
the cold? I don't have a cold. So, what did you say?
How did Pizzo do?
He was soft.
East Coast goalie.
I don't know if he would have came back the second night. Because I think he negotiated his way out of there. Because originally it was both of us for both days, and then him and Mike Hall flipped.
Oh, really? I guess I didn't see as much of the second day game. So
yeah, he did the big show from the studio the second night. And Mike Hall was with me.
Mike Hall
is the MVP because he's the one that found that room out at center field inside, which is like in the batter's eye in the baseball. That we could sit there. You couldn't really see the game, but we had the TVs. So we could watch the game. And it was on like a 10-second delay. So if we saw a goal, we'd be like, okay, now we're ready to watch it up on the screen.
That's like it is at Mariucci.
But it was warm. And it was a lifesaver. So, yeah, cold. But like I said, Wednesday, I assume I survived without getting a cold. So that's all. Just want to be healthy for Saturday.
We might have to get Pizzo on the podcast again just so he can rebut he's soft.
Hey, he was ready to cry, I swear. I mean, he did a better job of not looking cold on air. Like he could flip it on, where I was just kind of like,
well, yeah.
I guess I wasn't trying to look. I didn't think I was looking cold, but people were telling me my face was red. I mean, how are you supposed to protect against that? You can't.
I'm listening to the audiobook for Boys in the Boat.
Okay.
You guys know this story?
I've heard that. Yeah.
It's like the 1934 crew team that went to Berlin. When they went to Berlin,
came out. The movie.
Yeah, a movie came out. They put goose grease on their face and the arms and legs to avoid the cold. So clearly, you should have had some goose grease on you for the weekend.
Oh, natural, baby.
Because where are you going to find goose grease?
I feel like that was in some show or some movie recently. The Office. I think Dwight Schrute brought in a goose.
That is a total Dwight Schrute solution, too.
Yeah.
Yes,
and you
would
can
be.
use the goose grease after. Win-win.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Oh,
Christmas episode, maybe. But, all right, it's almost midnight. You guys
Thanks for coming on, Cappy.
You got
Always
it.
awesome.
I suppose I might get another invite, in February? Right? Is there another Buckeye?
There's
I
another
mean,
OSU
do you have
series?
the time? Do you have the time, Cappy?
Dude, I don't have any kids. February is a little...
Mine are all gone, so...
Are you going to be in the Twin Cities ever? We can buy you a beverage or something? Or
He was last year.
I guess
Yeah.
the only way, again... last year we did it.
yeah.
That weekend is the last... I think I've done the last two, but I didn't know until about a week before.
Yeah.
Because they don't know. Last year they said we weren't going to do a full series. We're only going to do one game or something. And then they ended up doing whatever. If they would have gone 3 games, we would have done all 3. I assume it's going to happen again. It's FS2, and it'll be... my guess would be either if you guys get second, it'll be you guys. If you guys win the league, I'm assuming it'll be Michigan State. You would think. For the home series. So if that happens, then if it's you guys, I got a chance unless Clymer, if Clymer's available, he'll probably do them. So.
All right.
And then I'm locked in right now, studio for the playoffs. I'd love to get a game in the playoffs or whatever, but
What about NCAA's? Do you know that yet?
No, because there's new people in charge.
Do we need to start a free Cappy campaign on social media?
Not free me. No.
Hire Cappy.
Re-sign
Cappy.
Re-sign
Cappy.
me.
Re-sign
I
Cappy.
don't know. I thought me and Jason did pretty
You guys
well
did great.
together, and there's Bucci and Colby will be one.
They'll be out east. Yeah, they're not going to go anywhere but east. So
Yeah, and I don't know what the other.
it's
three-
Toledo.
the
It's
other
Toledo
ones,
and
Rich Lynn is the second most, and then me, and then Clymer's done the last 2. So I've done 3. Clymer's done 2, and then Rich Lynn and Colby have been around a while.
Mhm.
So
We got Fargo this year. So
it's Fargo and Toledo,
Fargo and
the west ones.
and and then Allen. Is it Allentown or no?
Allentown.
Yeah.
So there's nothing. There's 3 that are not completely west or east.
Yeah.
Toledo's a great rink. I'm kind of happy.
Really?
It's not brand new, but it's about 8 or 10 years old now. East Coast League team, and you would think Michigan State is labeled for there. Yeah. And you would think Minnesota.
Depends on North
tricky,
Dakota,
right? I think if it's BC,
It just is.
Michigan State, Denver, and Minnesota, then one team's going to have to go.
Well, yeah, Minnesota
probably.
would go to Fargo. Denver's going to Allentown.
And
Yeah.
Michigan State, Toledo.
Mm-hmm.
That's.
Let's go.
Denver doesn't care.
No, they don't.
UNH, New Hampshire, or not New Hampshire, Springfield, was it? Whatever. They were out on the East Coast, and they had to play the first game of the tournament. So they did that the year before with me in Manchester, and they kind of laid an egg against Cornell. So it's hard to win back-to-backs, and this would be 3 out of 4. So whew,
It is. It is.
we shall see. All right, 11:56.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah,
We'll catch you next week.
Thanks, guys. And,
Cappy, stay on for the download real quick, though.
Well, yeah, stay on for
okay,
just a second.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Yep.
Gosh, is there anything going on, Viggs?
Before we